Okay, from where you are? Two, thank you so much for having me again, y'all. I love coming here. I know New Haven train station pretty well. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was pretty dope, you know, and to come back and see folks and recognize and remember, oh yeah, you were doing this and all that. It's just really an honor, y'all, for me. And that I've been able to share with you my story. I think what's been powerful for me is just to be part of a culture of learning and growing. And so I don't know how these things get presented to you or whatever, but I hope that you know that I'm sharing things that I've experienced and tried and all that, and I by no means consider myself an expert in anything. And I mostly say that to say, to the extent to which I do have any expertise, anything that works for me is because I've done it and it didn't work 1,000 times. And so I mostly encourage, particularly when we talk about this and the parallels and what we want for our students and what we want for ourselves, is to be okay with trying and failing, with testing some things out and seeing that that definitely doesn't work. At least, or this worked with this section of Spanish too, but this other section, that ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm only sharing with y'all what I know through some of these things. So most of what this is a new clicker. I had to buy this because of course I forgot my clicker at home.
They don't sell those at Target.
This
Did you get that at Target?
I did, actually, yeah, I got this at, I was able to order it online, and same with my little adapter thing, my little dongle gym. And I just took whatever they had. But yeah, so I'm learning the buttons on it. So what we'll talk about today, grading, I was really happy to see on the list of things that y'all wanted to talk about that grading was one of them and assessment was one. Because I just have nerded out for like the last 15 years about this stuff, and I'm always really excited to talk about it. And I've had a lot of recent experiences that have informed like my thinking around it. And grading is such a beast of a topic. It's really, really tough. There's so many moving parts and there's so much like intimacy that we hold with grading as teachers and students and how we interact with grades versus learning. And I do believe that those two things are opposed to one another. And we'll get into that. But I'll share this with you again later. This is a bunch of books that I've read in the last couple of years that have informed my thinking, in addition to like my own practice and all that. Grading for Equity, y'all know Grading for Equity? Anybody read them? No? Highly recommended. It's really, really good. I've worked for a couple of schools who had it as like a book clubby kind of thing. Hacking Assessment is like 100 pages, and it's all, the hacking series are all like, here's 10 quickly adaptable and applicable steps that you can do to do a thing. This is a really good one. Ungrading is a little bit longer and whatever. Culturally Responsive Teaching on the Brain is just a brilliant book. Zaretta Hammond is also like very accessible. You can like reach out to her on social media and all that. Grading Smarter, Not Harder is like a pretty parallel to Grading for Equity, but it's another really good read. And what I like about this one is that it's very much like, try this thing. It's not just talking about the theory and all that, but it's like, here's how you might be able to do some things different in your class. Equity by Design, I think is my least favorite on this list, but it did definitely help me to reimagine what assessment could look like in a classroom. And then NeuroTeach is really good. This author actually came to a school where I was working and came several times, which, you know, I like, because you get to come back and say, yo, I tried that thing and this works, or this, for whatever reason, didn't work. So I'll share this with you, but I really encourage y'all to like read and play with it.
I was gonna say, if we had to read one tomorrow, what do you think?
I would say Hacking Assessment.
Okay.
Sar Staxine. It's a super quick read,
Yeah, I like
and
that.
it's laid out like step 1, try this thing. Step 2,
Okay.
and yeah, for sure. And then I put Grading for Equity. I really think reading these two together would be good.
Is it world language focused or just like grading in general?
No, it's just grading in general, but
Okay.
it's definitely very easily applicable to a world language. Yeah? Any other thoughts real quick before I dive in? All right, So this is my brother, Jay. My big brother, Jay, is an amazing dude. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. He's 4 years older than me, and he's a runner.
Tell their brothers.
What's that?
You can tell your brothers.
Yeah, you see it a little bit?
A little bit.
I always like denied it, and then recently I've run across, like, I'll see a picture come up on social media, and I got to double take them. Oh, that's what these folks have been talking about for 4 years. Yeah, that's my big brother JJ, and he's a runner, and he does trail running now, which I've learned is just like running, but what would be a hike for anybody else. They're just running through the woods and up and down mountains and all that. But so I've had many conversations with him about his running practice and journey, and so in a clumsy way, I'm going to try to share with you the parallels in how he's grown as a runner and what I think that looks like in assessment in a classroom. And it's not going to be as poetic as I wish it was, but it's going to be pretty cool. So some of the issues that I've faced or that I've heard from teachers when it comes to grading, common pain points is, one, this lack of alignment. That says, I may grade a certain way in my classroom, I may weight things this way, I may take off points for this thing, and then when they go to French 3 in someone else's classroom, they don't grade the same way, and so that student doesn't know what success looks like from one class to the next. Does that feel like a thing that you faced? Lack of alignment? And so I may, because I grade these things a certain way, that's going to inform the way that I teach as well. And then that's going to maybe not prepare this kid for the next class. What I'm also going to introduce, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, is if we can think less about preparing students for the next class and more about preparing students for real life language use, then I think it'll help other things fall into place. But a lack of alignment. Another one is a lack of ownership from the students. That, like, if you have motivated students, it's more about getting the 94 than it is about being able to use Spanish. Does that feel like a thing?
Yes.
And so kids may not know even what a 94 means, and they may not care, or they may not do certain things because, are you going to grade that? Is that a thing for y'all too? Yeah. So what does ownership mean when they walk up, when they can finish up and be like, I got a 82. What does that mean when I'm at this job now and there are people here who speak Spanish? What does that mean that what do I do with that? And a lack of time. I hate grading. Like, I hate it. I hate taking time to grade things. And for the longest, and I still sort of feel guilty about that, because I feel like I'm selling my students short because I don't want to do it. I'd rather read 17 books about grading and have a win. But what I realized is that I hate grading. I don't hate giving feedback. And realizing that those two things are very rarely in a school setting, they're very rarely like congruent. It's not often that we're doing one and the other at the same time. And importantly, that like students aren't internalizing those two things as being the same thing. The feedback that we give versus the number that they get, which is really just, here's some coins that'll help you access the next level of something. You get 93, you only get 91, and you're gonna get 62, and that just means that I got an honors, or I didn't, or I suck at Spanish. And I don't know that application to the world outside of our schools actually makes sense. You with me so far? These are real pain points? All right, so to the first one, the lack of alignment. I'm gonna sit down a little bit and look at it. So lack of alignment between teachers, we talked about like from one class to the next, or even if we're both teaching French 2, and we have two students who are friends in this class, and then, all right, this kid has an 82, but this kid has an 88. And what does that mean? How does that look? All that sort of stuff. What are the ripple effects of that sort of thing? So that can be between one class, but then we also have middle school to high school. Yeah, any middle school teachers here? High school teachers? I've worked at schools, I'm not saying nothing about y'all, I've worked at schools where those two factions are constantly at war with one another and different divisions. So, and because high school, I'm primarily a high school teacher, so I'm not picking on us necessarily, but because high school is the last stop, that we often are the ones who get to say, y'all didn't prepare students for us. Is that a thing? You don't have to answer that. So, what happens when we get to actually substantiate that? Maybe it's true. Maybe it's true. Maybe middle school teachers are not preparing students for real stuff, right? But maybe whatever it is that you're measuring in high school just isn't what they're measuring in middle school. And maybe none of those things are actually measuring anything that would apply outside of the classroom. So we're all telling this kid that he gets a 75, but he actually could go work in this restaurant and talk to everybody who works there, or he actually could go travel, or maybe he could move to another country and survive, even though he got a 68 in class, right? And so aligning between divisions might help with A, relationships between teachers maybe, and B, helping students to see what it means to succeed in the language class. Y'all are mad at me? Are you mad at me?
No.
Are we fighting? All right. A biggie here is that students may not know what those grades mean, right? And that those grades may not communicate a lot of information other than you get this many points and coins and you don't. So how do we sort of solve for that? And this is what I think has helped me. And I don't know, forgive me that I don't know that y'all have done this, but setting proficiency targets for every class. Is that a thing that district-wide, A, has been done and B, has been clearly communicated?
No, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working
Yeah.
on it. It is
And that's
part of our-
fair. This is not, can I take a step back real quick and say, I'm not judging anybody. And like I said again, I mostly don't know what I'm talking about. So this is not a like, oh, you didn't do this thing yet. Realizing how hard some of this work is. But what would it look like if we said, when you graduate from, what's the name of this high school?
Foran.
Foran? When you graduate from Foran High School, and if you started Spanish in 6th grade, then by the time you graduate, then you should be at intermediate mid. Is that a step in that? And then therefore, if when you graduate, end of senior year, our goal is to get you to intermediate mid. Junior year, you should be where? Intermediate low, yeah? And there's a track for that. Does that make sense so far? So setting the portrait of a graduate and aligning that, y'all are familiar with perhaps the seal of biliteracy?
We do that.
You do?
Well,
Awesome.
we all do that. So I mean, I think that it's 8th grade, 4th grade, 8th grade, 11th grade, correct?
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
we're giving students the opportunity to take Apple and Alira assessments
Yeah.
to measure,
Yeah.
get a snapshot,
That's awesome.
and that then leads to the seal of
Okay,
biliteracy
yeah, awesome.
when they graduate.
Do you have a preference between, which assessment you get?
I think we've only had an experience with the Apple, right?
Yeah, you
Yes,
guys,
yeah.
I'm the, like, we're the
Alira
only
is
one that does
Latin.
Alira.
We've given
Oh, okay.
well, one year we gave
The first year.
first year we gave Avant, and then we did Alira or Apple. Sorry, and that I think mostly was a budgetary decision.
Yeah, I mean, which is real because these tests are not free. And then if it's a question of that, y'all are gonna, whatever.
We will not.
Okay.
We promise.
So anytime money's involved, then we have equity issues. And anytime there's equity issues, black kids lose. Black and brown kids lose. And so when we start all of this stuff, nothing's not related. How many black kids make it to upper levels in language? Is it because black people are inherently worse at acquiring language? Or is it because the ways how we're measuring language use are culturally biased? Maybe, maybe not. So, anyway. So, back to this, the idea of aligning, if we can start from the top and then plan backward, and then importantly, to communicate that between all of the different levels of stakeholders. So does every teacher know, every teacher who teaches whatever the highest level is, does everyone know what that target proficiency level is.
We're trying.
All of the
very hard
teachers.
to get- But then, you know, if I can just say one thing. So
Yeah,
the thing is
say it.
that if we still teach AP, and
Yeah.
also I teach ECE, so dual enrollment, so I have a AP dual enrollment
Yeah.
like class. They don't have AP or ECE here. At the
Mhm.
other high school, I teach it, right? So it's, the
Mhm.
programs are also, I think that also there's an elementary school Spanish program here.
Yeah.
There's not an elementary school French program.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that we're doing a lot of things right, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that are amazing in this district, really legitimately amazing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But in terms of the equity, what you just said, like a lot of schools, as you know, a lot of private schools decided not to teach AP anymore for that reason,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's just, black and brown kids are just grossly underrepresented.
Yeah.
So, but this district is keeping on with that, which is fine,
Mhm.
because I actually think that, you've taught EP before, haven't you? So it's a good test, it's actually a good test. The program itself, like, well, that can be another, you know, professional development day.
I'm here.
But one thing that I've talked to our curriculum people about that worries me
Mhm.
is exactly what you just said, because the whole idea of backward planning, like, it has to be systemic.
Mhm.
You can't start from kindergarten and then go to sixth grade and then go to middle school and say, we're all gonna sit down and do curriculum work if no one has talked to the high school about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they are.
You know, huh?
But we are.
But we all
That's what's
what?
happening.
That's a piece of
But that is what's happening.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening.
Well,
So it's just hard for me because I know exactly, like, but then that puts us in the position of being the people that you just, like,
Mhm.
said, you know, the
everybody
high
has to serve
school.
us. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
totally.
but the thing is that we're the end of the line, so
Sure.
it is that,
Mhm.
you know, and it's not
Mhm.
like you're all working for us,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's like,
We should prepare
I
them
need
for
to,
the-
like, I need to get those students to a certain point, and if they come into me from you,
Mhm.
and half of them are at that point and the other half are not at that point, that's a big problem for me. Because it takes me an entire year or two
Yeah.
to work that out, and I
Yeah.
don't have that kind of time.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanna get these kids to have a 4 or 5 on the AP exam,
Mhm.
if I wanna get them to pass a dual enrollment
Yeah.
UConn test, that, you know, class that they paid
Yeah.
for.
Mm.
You know, I don't have that kind of time
Yeah.
to fool around,
So
you know, so it's hard.
it is all of this is
And-
impossible.
yeah.
Can we name that? That teaching is really hard, and anything we're talking about is gonna hit a wall like that. I
Yeah,
think one of the
yeah.
an issue that is rising to the surface as you're naming that is also, do we have space within our tracking for people who may move to our district in 10th grade?
Mhm.
Or for a kid who's a heritage speaker, are they just done?
I mean, even
Yeah.
at this point, like the districts, well, at least on our side, I don't know about that, but like we've been slowly like eliminating tracking from our programs and like, and for better or for worse, being able to look at the like kids coming into those environments, they're definitely having a little bit more opportunities for success, but once again, it was kind of just an acted upon thing.
Yeah,
So people like they're removing levels and leveling and tracking.
sure.
And so as we're moving away from the leveling and tracking, there's been no real discussion or thought about like actually trying to like, you know, integrate everything together and trying to hold the expectations at a similar level.
Mhm.
And like you were saying with the like trying to aim for a goal of the learner at like the higher levels of
Mhm.
intermediate, mid, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It comes down to that communication piece.
And so, there's another book that I did not put on here, but it's called Leading the World Language Department by Catherine Ritz. And it maps out pretty well, all of this is like, if you have the resources for it, but it maps out pretty well the benefits to sustaining a particular proficiency level too. So should a student fail if they're just consistently performing at novice high?
Right.
Or do we as teachers, given what we know about language acquisition, want to encourage them to stay in Spanish all the way throughout, even though they're not going to take AP? They're never going to be an AP. But I want you to keep up with language. And if you are, is there a track for a Spanish 4 where there's a different proficiency level target so that we're not like grading them harshly, and they can still be in the language. So how do we create space for those students who arrive at a certain level, for the fact that when you're in, I'm teaching French 2 in 9th grade, and I have some kids who can do a certain thing because they came from this middle school, and then some kids who can't do anything because they did this, or whatever the case is. Are there mechanisms in place for us to foster growth for all of those students without it being a negative reflection of the teacher and the previous teachers and all that sort of
I
stuff?
mean, I hate to interrupt on this one as well,
No, no,
but
no.
like, you know, mea culpa, my apologies for that, but like, doesn't it also like reflect on the fact that like, when we get there, I mean, it's okay, like if kids are going into the language, and it's okay if a kid can get like, you know, a 3 or 4, and they're working their butts off trying to get like, you know, a 3 on the AP exam, and their success criteria doesn't need to be guaranteed by the actual amount of success criteria that's guaranteed by the, for credit.
Yeah.
Even the experience of taking the test and taking the actual class is going to be more advantageous for a learner than not having them have equity access to that.
I mean-
And I think that's the point that you're trying to like, you know, go at, but I'd also like, you know, like to put that success criteria is kind of like movable.
Yeah, and I've spent the last half of my career working in private schools. I think what you're speaking to touches on like the idea of weeding certain students out. So
You
you
should
get
be.
to say, we have this graduation rate, we have this success rate on the AP, but it's like, because you didn't admit the students who you didn't think would be successful. You know, so are you the best teacher in the world because all of your kids get a 5 on the AP exam, but you only have 5 kids because you failed everybody else out? You know what I mean? Whatever.
But that, I mean, sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
no,
I
please.
will swear I'll shut up after this.
Please don't.
But that's why I think that as much as we want the world language department to be like, okay, well, we're all gonna make curriculum together and Spanish and French are gonna work together to do this and that and the other thing, I think that it's a lovely idea, but it's just impossible because I don't have tracking in my program. I've literally gotten rid of it. I
Yeah.
went to the administration and I said, no,
Yeah.
I won't do it
Mhm.
because there is no French 5. And
Mhm.
I want to have every single freshman French 2 student, and I'm the only French teacher in the high school. There's
Mhm.
no one else.
Yeah.
So when
It
I
is just
get
one high
these
school?
French,
2 high schools.
when I get those French 2 students, even if they failed middle school French,
Mhm.
I still am in the mindset of you're gonna get to AP.
Yeah.
Because I have to be in that mindset. Because if I'm not, I don't have a program and then I don't have a job.
Sure.
And I'm not kidding around. And of course, I'm doing it for the kids.
Yeah.
But it's not like there's 45 French teachers at this
Yeah.
school. Like, I am it. That's
If
it.
enrollment goes
You know,
down,
if
your bills
enrollment
may
goes
have to pay
down,
straight
I
up.
have a part-time job.
Yeah.
And also, I'm passionate about it. I've been doing it for, 33 years.
Mhm.
So I'm really into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
want the kids to learn, and that's really
Yeah.
important. So I can't have tracking. It's,
Mhm.
it's antithetical to literally everything I believe in.
Yeah.
And I went to the administration and they were like, okay, we'll get rid of it. So
Yeah.
every single one of my classes is honors French. Every single
Yeah.
one of them. Because I said, you know what, I'll be damned if I'm gonna have half of this class not get a grade bump and I'm teaching them the exact same thing. They're all sitting
Y'all do a
in
grade
the
bump?
same, for honors, yes. Right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, that's grossly unfair.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they said, that's great.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying, is that I'm my own little planet,
Mhm.
right? And
As
I
French teachers
can't,
tend to be.
and so is Patricia. And so I can't have, comparing the Spanish program, who, by the way, also have an enormous amount of heritage speakers now, it wasn't that way before.
Yeah.
But so to compare French
Mhm.
and Spanish and then to throw Latin into the mix,
Or Mandarin, right?
Or-
Like,
right, and
Yeah.
I mean, we don't happen to have any other
Yeah.
languages other than
Yeah.
those 3.
I only bring
But
it
I
up to
think
say,
it's-
I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, but I
it's
only bring it up
not.
to say that in that other book that I said isn't on this list, kind of describes that too, that like different languages are gonna have different rates of acquisition based on the fact that if English is our first language, right? And so there's a better likelihood of you reaching a higher proficiency level after this many years of French and Spanish than there is of you getting there learning Mandarin. here in the States, right? And so would it be reasonable to expect the Mandarin teacher to get all of their students to intermediate mid when that's just not how language acquisition works, when you have a new, whole new system of sounds like phonetic system, new alphabet, all that?
But
And
then,
so
to,
keeping,
but then to compare those AP scores, so 90% of kids who are in AP Chinese are heritage speakers. 90%. The average score of the Mandarin Chinese AP exam is like a 4.4, right? So how in the world can you compare, and Spanish, the percentage is extremely high of heritage speakers.
heritage speakers.
French is tiny. I mean, as I said, I've been teaching for 32 years. I have had one heritage speaker of French in
Yeah.
my entire career.
Yeah, sure.
So you just like, I think that it's, well, you know, it's like what, it's just, it's, as much as I would love to say, okay, let's all have this amazing theme-based thing, and Spanish and French are gonna work together, and we're gonna do this and that, and it's just like, our needs are different, and I think
Yeah.
it's okay to say, those things need to be
Yeah,
separate.
I think more,
Ideas.
it's more than okay. I think it's obviously a necessity. I think it would be important within each program. What I'm sort of suggesting is that within this program, because different languages will also have different resources and different amounts of teachers and sections and all that. But conceptually, to say, if we would like for our graduates in this program to reach this level, if they've been in here since 6th grade or whatever the case is, then we can start planning backward. That may look different for our students who are entering in 9th grade from a different district. That will look different from students who test in, you know what I mean? That'll look different for a different language, for ASL. That'll look different, but to have the planning be backward is really the point that I'm making. And the planning being backward with reasonable expectations per language. Does that much feel right? And so building that alignment and shared targets and shared understanding, and this another big piece of this is if we get there, then I think we've done a big piece of the work that we need to do. To have all of the teachers know, I'm teaching Spanish 2, and for this particular group of Spanish 2, the success criteria, the target proficiency goal is intermediate level. That's really big for the teachers to know that. And if the students don't know that and can't articulate it, then there's still going to be a big gap in what language growth really looks like. So can parents identify what the goals are for this class and for this program? Can teachers identify it? Can admin identify it? And importantly, can the students identify to say, this is what I know being successful in this class looks like, is when I can speak in simple sentences and ask follow-up questions, right? Does that much make sense? Yeah. And so, working backward within the program, and again, AP, there's a paper that I'll share with y'all, but there was like a study that was like what at full proficiency level aligns with different AP scores. I don't love AP, I think it's a decent test, but I don't like the idea of teaching to a test necessarily. But I do like the idea of having themes. I do like the idea of setting that as a goal that hopefully is going to be accessible to everyone within our program. And allowing it to be sort of how we're going to map out what our other things are. And so in this study, they talk about if you demonstrate, this pointer doesn't show up on here.
It doesn't.
That's designed to do. If you demonstrate advanced low proficiency level, then you're highly likely to get a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam. And so it might make sense to have advanced low be the target proficiency level of an AP level class, so that the students who demonstrate success there will likely get the desired grade.
And also a 3 in Connecticut, a 3 is you can get the seal of
For the
biliteracy
biliteracy,
also.
yeah.
So there are 2 ways that it's good that we're giving the Apple test to juniors because they have really 2 chances of getting the seal of biliteracy.
Yeah. And you'll do global seal of biliteracy, or is there a state one?
It's a state one.
It is a state one, okay. Yeah, I think the global asks for I gotta check it out, but yeah. That's cool though, that's really cool, and I like setting the seal of biliteracy as a thing because it's actually saying, not just here's a grade that you get, but like, this is what you're capable of doing outside of here, you know? Like, you have this, and it honors the kids. I don't know if you offer it for kids who may speak another language at home, but when there's kids who are multilingual already, they can like show them. So, setting the idea of just having an idea, regardless of what those things are, but having an idea and being able to clearly communicate what that looks like. So I had asked my brother about a particular marathon that he was running and what his goal was and how he set that, right? Like, he runs all the time and he runs with purpose. And so like, what did you want to do on this marathon that he ran? And he talked about 2020 Mesa Marathon. I had an out loud goal of 3 hours and 50 minutes. That's unfathomable for me. First of all, you're running by choice. This is just not, I don't get it. And that's what he trained for. So he had set this goal, and then that informed his training. I had a quiet goal of 3:45 because my buddy Tom Corrigan had just run a 3:47, and I wanted to beat him because he's a big brother through and through. Also, I remembered Rye is his like college roommate buddy who they're still really good friends, running a Boston 50 in 350 something, running the Boston in 350 something in 2007. So I obviously had to beat him as well. There was no 345 pacer, so I ran with the 340 pacer. Big mistake is I bonked out. I bonked around mile 21, but despite having to walk at several points, I finished at 3:45:06. Yeah, shout out to JJ first of all. But, again, I wanted this to be like poetic and stuff. But what was his target?
3:50.
His target was 3:45, right? And then
Out loud goal of 3:50.
Yeah, but his real goal.
Oh, 3:45, I see.
3:45. And then he trained to get there.
Crazy.
He had his own motivation, right? 3:45, you don't like get a prize for getting 3:45 necessarily, yeah?
That was personal.
It was a personal goal
Yep.
that he thought was important. He trained accordingly. And then what happened when he got this? Did he lose something because he had an extra 6 seconds on it?
No.
Anybody took anything away from him? No? What's the only thing that happens here?
He showed improvement.
He showed improvement. He can say, yeah, I did it. Or he can say, I really want to get under 3:45.
I gotta train harder.
Sorry?
I gotta train harder.
Gotta train. That might affect, I'm gonna train differently, for real. Like, but he's the one who's in the driver's seat and deciding what success looks like moving forward. Maybe he's perfectly fine with that. Who knows? Whatever. So some of the other challenges that still remain is after you set what those proficiency targets are, is what do we have shared understandings? If I'm teaching French 2 and you're teaching French 3, do we still have an idea as to what a successful performance looks like in our class? Do we share that? Do our students share that? Have we communicated that clearly with the students and with the parents and all that? And then a biggie, Annabella and I tend to agree on methodologies, on approaches to teaching. And we both have worked in, and everybody I think has worked in schools and departments and programs where not everybody agrees upon that. Is that fair? What I think, we'll get to this, what I think helps when in the wars of like, you teach this and you don't teach this and you're not preparing and all that, is if we're measuring the same things, we don't have to argue as much about methodologies. We have evidence as to what works and what doesn't. The arguments may still remain because human beings are human beings, but if we decided that 3:45 was the time, we want people to get to 3:45. I'm gonna train mine my way, you train yours your way. At the end of the day, this many of mine got to 3:45. But that many more of yours got to 3:45, so that conversation looks different. but it's kind of hard to figure out the disagreements about methodologies when we don't know how we're measuring their success. Cool? So how do we do that? One is grades. So now I'm super privileged in that I get to teach. I teach an after-school program now. And I teach at a school where everybody speaks Spanish. Some people speak English. And everybody is studying French for the first time. And there's no expectation that I input grades anywhere. And yet, my students are learning a ton and are growing so much. The first 18 years of my teaching career, I was compelled to put in a grade for everything, and ultimately to tell some people that they have what it takes to move on to this next thing, or that they don't have what it takes. And here I am in a situation now where I just don't have to put in grades. I get to decide when I want to assess in the literal sense and just be like, how much of this teaching and learning has stuck? And so I can design some sort of activity that I think will reflect that back to me. And I only do it for me to have an idea as to who is where, for me to have an idea as to how much more time I should spend on something, or if I should move forward. That's a big privilege because I don't have to put in this many grades before the report cards come out. But I say that to say, it's the grades. It's the grades that, like, if I had to do that, when I've had to do that, learning stopped. And it turned more into like, are you gonna grade that? And like, I don't understand anything, and then you didn't explain this. I get so few complaints about kids not understanding stuff because they're not throwing up that wall to be like, well, I've gotta pretend that I don't understand so that it can be your fault that you didn't, that's the reason why I got this bad grade. Everybody's learning a ton of French. Anyway, so what are grades and what are they communicating? Real quick with a partner, can we come up with, do we share an idea as to what grades are and what they do? Can you take like 45 seconds to talk with somebody and see if you can come up with what do we believe grades are and what do they do? And then we'll share out. Okay.
Do you want to do what I do? Yeah, whatever. They allow us to assess what students have retained from the lesson. The concept that we grading what they retain from the lesson. And then, what was the second one?
I can just say
What would you say? Grades up.
I like the idea of measuring tool to inform future teachers.
Yes.
And I guess that's kind of similar to
Gives us information on where we are in the lesson and where we're going, whether if it's time to move on, depending on what the grades are. In the second part, what do they do? What do they do?
kind of similar.
Right. It gives us information.
Gives information, gives
And it's
a base that we
look at everything. Except for like
Take another like 15 or so.
sorry, I had a lot of thoughts.
Everyone's progress is it's okay that's not gonna be that's right.
We need to send a message.
that may or may not be able to do it.
Right.
But I don't think we're doing it.
But you're talking about grade levels too.
But it's gonna
What's best?
How we doing? You want a little bit more time? Yeah, a little bit more time?
Yeah, that's. That's partially why.
All right. So, before I ask you to share out, are there any groups where, yeah, so, are there any groups where you're like, yeah, that's what grades are, yeah, cool, next topic?
No.
No one? Yeah?
Kind of similar. We use
Would-
bread.
Wow.
Wow.
That's,
He accuses me of being like his mother.
yeah.
I'm just throwing it back. I've
I
never
love
even met the woman.
You gotta go for
Apparently,
lunch.
she should be my best friend.
I'm sorry.
You gotta go for lunch.
Fantastic lady.
Y'all are both from Long Island too, right?
We are.
Long Island, yeah, I get it. I know the Long Island moms.
There's only 3 people in our whole school from Long Island, and 2 of us
Two of them are right
right
here, fighting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nassau, Suffolk? Suffolk.
Nassau.
Nassau and
Nassau.
Nassau.
Yeah.
I'm going to Lilt next, in 2 weeks.
So where?
Lilt, Long Island Language Teacher
Okay.
Conference. Yeah. Yeah, Lilt is called. So, anybody want to share what are grades? Well, before you do, so very few groups aligned, if anyone. Yeah, and 2, what do we feel like that means?
It's personal, highly personalized.
Highly personal, yeah. Yeah. What else does that do if we don't agree upon what a grade is?
Make it impossible.
Creates disparity in alignment.
Creates disparity. Yeah. And I'm just gonna, I'm here, I get to show up, ruffle feathers and then bounce. But like I've been a department chair before, and this stuff is very hard, and it's personal, and it's especially because we teachers, y'all have an incredible amount of pressure, locally, nationally, all that. And so much of our identities are wrapped up. He talks about this a lot in Grading for Equity. So much of our identities are wrapped up in being teachers, right? It's a thing we have a calling for. And so then when the country is saying that you're just indoctrinating kids and you're a bunch of pedophiles, and then, I mean, you know what I mean? And then your colleagues are saying you're bad at this thing that you were born to do. Like that, this is tough. And it really, I'm bringing this up because this is a topic, but I hope you know that I don't take lightly how personal this is and how much like, I don't want to say wounds, but this might open up some stuff, but I really believe that the conversations need to be had, and they need to be had with shared language and shared understanding about what our common goals are, so that we don't spend the rest of our careers fighting each other. We're fighting enough battles, you know what I'm saying? We got enough like fronts, and so the idea of fighting our colleagues and all that, instead of like working toward solving what I think is a real problem, It's rarely that your colleague isn't teaching well. It's more likely that I'm not measuring what you're measuring. You know, or like you just got a lot of shit going on right now. You know what I'm saying? This is not your year. And that's cool. I'm gonna pick up the slack where I can. You know what I'm saying? Like just whatever. So I don't take lightly whatever sort of challenges and interpersonal things are happening right now. I also, that's y'all's problem. I get to go home. So somebody tell me what are grades?
I think what I want them to be is like a measure of what a kid is capable of producing and comprehending in Spanish. I don't think that that's necessarily what it is,
Okay.
but that's where I want it to go.
Does anyone else feel similarly that there's a bit of a gap between what you want grades to be versus what they are? Does anyone agree that in practice, those two things are not necessarily aligned? Yeah.
Like I look at, I mean, I've said this a million times, but I look at elementary and I know that they do things differently and I know that the teachers have the kids all day. So it's very, very different.
Sure.
But when I can get a report card that says my kid can do this, that's powerful, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then my kid can't do this and I'm like, well, okay, yeah, you can't do it yet. But like, what does my 90 mean? And my grades have changed like dramatically since I started at Foran actually, since you guys started coming really.
Yeah.
They just changed dramatically because I started looking at it and I was like, well, what is a 95? Like, what the hell does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Does it have purpose? And then the kids started understanding what the grades meant.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't know really if I'm doing it the right way or anything.
I don't know either, but I think, so, I mean, I bring this up later, and so you can pretty much give the rest of the presentation, but in lower schools, in elementary schools, they teach some really important things. Like my children are learning how to read and write and understand numbers at all. And the reports that I get back are meeting expectations, exceeding expectations. And it's right down the street. It's on the same campus. It's the teachers who I have lunch with on our PD days who gather all of this information, all of this evidence of what my child has done in this certain amount of time, and they make a professional decision to give me the feedback to say, within literacy, here's one sub-criteria that initiates reading on its own. And they don't tell me the average of the things. I have no idea. My son tells me he has a test, but I don't know that the teacher's calculating it like that. But at the end, I get to see that this professional who has intimate knowledge of what success looks like and what growth looks like in these fields is telling me that my son is meeting expectations or is exceeding expectations. Now, I still, because I'm a jackass, I'm still just looking for like how many or is he still progressing toward or like, whatever. But they were able to communicate so much to me and there was never once a number shared. And it's not that they're just down there hula hooping and playing. They're learning how to read, like formative reading stuff. You know what I mean? And so at what point do we stop trusting in that system of measuring growth? At what point do we stop trusting in the idea of saying this is the target for second grade, even though my kid has had a book read to him every night of his life since he was born, and another kid came in and doesn't own a book in their home. And the teacher has the incredible weight of doing that, and teaching science, and teaching math, and all that kind of stuff. But we understand that they're going to work toward these goals. You said yet before, that my kid can't do this yet. And that we're going to put systems in place to help support that kid continue to grow because they can't help the fact that they don't have any books in their house, that no adults read to them. Are we going to punish that kid? Are we going to tell him that reading's not for him? Or are we going to put supports in place and have that feedback help inform the supports that we need in order to move that kid back?
And then there's a contrary too, because you get that information, right? And then you look at your kid getting 3, like a meets, on speaking, and he won't stop talking ever, even when he's sleeping, and he's talking like about all of these important things,
Yeah.
and these like, just the way that he speaks is very advanced.
Yeah.
And you got a 3, but for me, now I'm like, okay, so what's happening at school? Why are you not performing? Why are you not
Mm.
showing them what you can do? And then that's a whole different scenario, so we could also look at that
Yeah.
way down the line. Like,
I mean,
you know,
No, that's in here. Is the measurements that the school is using a real reflection of what my child is capable of doing? Now, if I get to come home, this is 100% personal right now. My eldest son is brilliant, and he has like pretty rough ADHD. I say rough, that's not the best way to characterize it, but it is very apparent, and it shows up. And he is so smart and does so many things that show such high levels of literacy and being able to make connections between things. And what he cannot do is sit down for 45 minutes and write an essay. Never. So his grades will suffer often, but not because he can't identify the main ideas in case of putting details and to draw, make inferences and whatever. It's that he's incapable of sitting down and putting it onto paper. So is the test that requires him to sit down and then gives back feedback that's supposed to be measuring his ability to draw connections between the themes between this book and that book, is that 65 that he got valid? Is my job as his parent to try to beat out of him? Not literally, I'd never hit my kids. Just to be clear. Is it my job as a parent to like, yo, you gotta be able to sit down and write that essay? In 2025? In 2040, when he's out there like trying to figure out how to make a living and stuff, is it his ability to sit down and write an essay for 45 minutes? Is that the skill?
But then that's not, the thing is, the grade is just an arbitrary, completely subjective number. It's just, I was saying to them, it's just, a grade is just a percentage out of 100, because you can't have more than 100. It's literally just a mathematical concept.
Yeah.
So it's not the grade that is the problem, it's the assessments that are giving you that number, right? So what I was saying is that I think for me, it helps to completely disassociate the idea of assessment and grades.
Yeah.
Because they're two completely different things. They're not related at all. A grade is just a number.
Yeah.
And the number is whatever you assign to that number is its meaning, you know? So like if we want to do proficiency-based testing, then everything that we did in our classroom was proficiency-based and growth-based and, you know, shows improvement and all that stuff. And then we assign that to a grade.
Yeah.
If we all, as a community, say, that's what we're doing here, then that grade is valid,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But, I mean, so it's not so much that your son's 65 is not valid, it's the assessments that are not valid, not the number itself. So it's
Yeah.
the process of attaching the assessments to the grade that's the problem,
Sure.
right? And, I mean, we have it in our department, we're not really doing proficiency-based testing as much as I think that we probably should, but that's like a revolutionary thing to completely change a K through 12 program into proficiency-based testing. It would take years, literally, to do it. And I'm not sure that we will ever get there.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's really, I've only known one program in my entire career that successfully did it, and I wasn't working there. It was my husband's school, and it was really successful what
Yeah.
they did, but it took a lot of money and a lot of years to get
Yeah.
them there.
So I'm with you, and I think a larger, so you talked about it's a percentage out of 100, yeah?
I mean, that's what a grade is.
Except in another like, en France, c'est 100 ou c'est combien?
Over,
C'est
Sur
20.
20.
C'est sur 20.
So if you get a
Yeah.
14, you're a pretty solid student,
yeah,
right? That's not a percentage.
C'est ça.
honors, like, yeah,
In
15,
Colombia, it's
16,
50.
15 is honors. Yeah, high honors, like
15 will be
19,
honors.
Out
So
of
if
20?
in another 15 out of
Very
20
hard
is
to
like
get
a really good student.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yep. And so I only say that to say, similarly, if I get a 4 on the AP exam, I'll bring this up later. If you get a 4 on the AP exam, y'all have had students get 4 on AP, do they feel like they got an 80? Or do they feel like they got a 4 on the AP exam? So yes, we have made grades out of 100 be the feedback. we've allowed, and it's not us, it's not teachers' fault, it's culturally speaking here, where y'all know, you give a quiz back to a kid and they got a 98 on it, what do? Boom, throw it in the backpack. Give a quiz back to a kid and they got a 28 on it, what do? They're not looking at what the feedback is, they just want to see the number and they keep it pushing, right? And so it's because we've put more, students are internalizing more about what those numbers are. And then, I got in trouble over this recently at a previous school. But a student will come to me and be like, why did I get a 91? Not because they don't believe that they deserved a 91, but because they heard their friend got a 92. They don't care about, and I'm not blaming the kid, I'm saying culturally, it's not about growth and learning, it's about ranking. And there's no way that this dude, I'll get into this in a minute, this dude who missed 2 homework assignments, and I do all of my homework on time, how does he have a 92 and I only have a 91?
But the high
And
schools
nobody-
have ranks. And
Sorry?
colleges, like the kids put their high school rank on college application. So it's really mostly I mean, everybody knows this, but it's the colleges that are driving that. You know,
Yeah.
so.
And then they go to college, and the percentages of people who study a language in the United States for however many years and then as adults consider themselves to be proficient in that language, despite being A students, is remarkably low. Right, so I agree with you, and I've had a million fights with college counseling specifically, and I can't fix that system, but I do think that there's little ways around it.
Not even just the adults though, the kids in Spanish 5 will say, I can't speak very well.
And
You know?
yeah,
And it's just, the change is happening, but it's
Uh-huh.
not happening
Yeah.
fast enough.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? But it's like, it's the proficiency-based stuff that it's
Yeah.
like, you know, we're there, we're in it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I wish there was like a magic button.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, again, I think that we can't start to do that work if we don't agree upon what grades are. And so what I would encourage y'all to do as a department, as a school, is to have a working definition of what grades are. And to make sure that every teacher knows it and agrees upon it, and then that's clearly communicated to the other stakeholders, right? The students know that I got a 95 because 95 means that I met these criteria, and the criteria for this class were A, B, and C. And I got an 82 because I met these criteria, you know what I mean? That those things are defined and agreed upon and communicated clearly. And I'm about to share with y'all what I believe to be my definition, my working definition of what grades are. And this is where I usually get tomatoes thrown at me. But my idea of what grades are and closing the gap between what they have been for me historically versus what I believe they should be. And in the last few years, I've really, really worked toward aligning those two things. My definition of grades, is this working soon? Grades are a communication about the extent to which a student has progressed toward, achieved, or exceeded a goal. Nothing else. So grades can't be how often you showed up on time. Grades can't be, grades can't be whether or not you have time at home to do homework or you have a tutor at home and this other kid has to have a job after school to help support his family. Grades can't be whether you have a menstrual cycle and that affects and you don't. Grades can't be those things. Now, have we figured out a way to eliminate all of that stuff in our grades? I don't think so, but I think when I started looking at my grades as just being a communication about the extent to which a student has progressed toward a goal, it means I have to have established a goal. I have to have communicated what that goal is. And then, did you meet it? Yeah.
What happens when the goal has to be different for a variety of kids in the class?
Yeah. So, the plan is to get here, but I think that part of what's challenging with grades in school generally, but it really shows up in language, is that we have this idea that most of us are failures. The whole 100-point grading system is oriented toward failure, right? Most of the points that you could earn is failing, and then there's only this many successful, right? When that's just not the case in real-world language use. Real-world language use is if you can just give a thumbs up. Again, I'm an immigrant to a new country now with a new language, and I do stuff just giving a thumbs up sometimes. But if I was convinced that I was a failure in Spanish, then I would never know that I could still do that, right? I would never know that I could circumlocute or I could say this word in English and someone's going to hear that it's a cognate for them and they'll be like, oh, it's this, right? And so can we make space for students who meet the goal, but then students who are approaching the goal to not give them grades, the capital that we use here to rank people, not give them grades that's going to turn them off towards their continued growth. So you're approaching the goal. And so you're approaching it, you did the following things, that's still successful language use. So should anybody in my class who's doing anything with the language, should anybody be failing? I don't know.
I have a question.
I personally don't think so, but.
So the grading system, like I'm from Francophone country, 10/20, it's a passing grade.
Yeah.
Some assessments I give students, it's writing and speaking.
Mhm.
Sometimes they don't do the speaking, just the
Mhm.
writing. If I give them 50, it's failing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're
So that's like a
averaging.
huge difference. They don't just pass.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. They always tell me, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an F. I don't know. It's a C. I just give you the grade because I have my rubric.
Sure. And what we run into then, they talk about this in grading for equity a lot, is that if I got a 50 on this one thing, mathematically how hard it is for me to then be successful later if you're averaging all these things out. So if I failed this test or I wasn't there, I didn't take it, I had, a trauma response in the moment and I crumpled it up and threw it at the teacher, whatever. I got a 0 on this thing, I can never recover from that mathematically.
Yeah.
But maybe towards the end of the marking period or whatever, I actually can speak in a series of connected sentences about a variety of topics while asking follow-up questions. But the grade I'm gonna get is gonna be really heavily impacted by that 0 I got when I had a really bad day because I'm hungry and my dad just got out of prison. And but I'm demonstrating that I'm meeting the target. But I'm gonna fail now? You know what I mean? And so, it's tough. It's tough when we have to assign a number. So, I don't think we should assign numbers until the end. And I'll talk about that once we get there. Are y'all okay right now? Anybody need a break? All right. They should only reflect the evidence of that goal, ideally. They should not, this is where, again, I get tomatoes thrown at me. But I don't think that they should reflect homework and participation. My brother's a runner, yeah?
Yes.
Yes? What was his goal? 340, 345? Did he get 345?
06.
I love that you're not gonna let him have it. I love it. I wanna tell him, like, yeah, these people, they said you got work to do, bro. Is any part of him having gotten that, is there anything in there that says how often or what time he woke up in the morning to train? How many practices he missed? No? What matters right now in terms of whether or not he successfully ran
The
the result?
He finished it.
He finished it. He met his goal in the end. The amount of training he did should help him get that result. But if I'm gonna somehow affect his time, be like, dude, I told you to get to practice at 8 a.m. You didn't show up until 8:45. So now your marathon time, I'm gonna add 10 seconds to it. That's not your marathon time. If showing up at 8 a.m. is actually supposed to be helpful in lowering your marathon time, then it'll show up in your marathon time.
Yeah, but that's,
Got it.
all of that is, I think, only true if we really believe that literally our only job is to produce kids who can be proficient at a certain level in a language, and that is not.
I disagree. I'm not saying no, I'm saying that the grade.
We actually are teaching them responsibility, we're teaching them.
I agree with that, but the grade doesn't,
structure
the
and-
grade, I agree with that, but we have to communicate that to them in something other than a number out of 0 to 100. And so I can tell you and communicate to you, there should be, again, this is in one of these books. There should be a mechanism for me to say, yo, the behaviors that you're doing are part of a larger thing, right? Your inability to show up on time will have effects in the following ways, but it is not a reflection of the extent to which you demonstrate proficiency in this language. So yeah, we have all of that responsibility. We have a ton of additional responsibilities, but they don't show up in grades. And when they do, they largely disproportionately negatively affect already marginalized communities.
Case in point, and it speaks to my question that I had before, because I was thinking about your son, because I tutor a kid that has a severe ADHD, but he's brilliant, and he's a professor it's a college kid. He doesn't know how to make accommodations for him. But case in point, to what you're saying about grades, I have a student this year, first year Latin kid, who's a total space cadet, and everybody else is doing the work, and he's not even doing the work. It won't take long, but he absolutely can nail the answers. Like he can do Latin, and I'm like, all of a sudden it's occurring to me now, just a few weeks into this, like, what is going on here? This kid really gets it, but he's not paying attention. And he's not even like when everybody else is trying to do the work, doesn't even have a piece of paper out. And it's occurring to me, okay, he's got something going on here, and those other behaviors we'll talk about on the side.
And we have to your point. Forgive me, I'm so sorry, what's your name again?
She's Liz.
Mine, Liz.
Liz, Liz, to Liz's point, which I think is a really good one, right? I've said this every time I've ever spoken. I don't believe that our only job, even our main job, is language proficiency and proficiency growth. And I don't think that we can promote language proficiency growth or the other things if we don't find other ways to communicate what our other jobs are, right? The other things that we want to help develop among our young people. And so a lot of what I'm getting to is putting the feedback before the number. And so when that student is doing something, they're like, yo, like you never do homework. But if that student is showing up and meeting the targets, that are gonna be like, all right, well then clearly the homework that I'm giving isn't like so crucial that not doing it would affect your performance.
But what if, like all of my homework, so I give homework that is credit, no credit, completion or not. It's a way to get them to do a little bit, almost like practicing a musical instrument. They cannot, I have to hold them responsible for doing some work outside of class. Because otherwise they are not going to progress the way that I need them to. Just to say, and I always say, it's just like a musical instrument. You can't just go in, take a lesson once a week, and then not do anything at home, and then expect to get better at piano. Because you're just simply not going to get better at piano. But I also think that one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of in terms of like the goal thing is that I think that, you refer to the 5 C's a lot. And the thing is, the whole thing is about progress and process. And I think that it's really important for the students to know that even if they can never produce a sentence in French, that the process of just being in class and putting ideas together has value. All of that to me has value, and I want to have that reflected in the grades. I don't want the grades to only be about the end result, because sometimes the kids, sometimes they're showing only the end result and not the process. Sometimes they're showing the process and not the end result. So you need to have grades that reflect both of those things. And I also think that the process, explaining to the students that the process is incredibly important, and I think in a lot of ways more important than the end result. Because I'm very frank with them. I said the chances of any of you graduating from high school and being like at an advanced high level are, it's not good. And all the work in the world that you're gonna do, like you are not gonna walk out of this high school as a fluent French speaker. You're just not. And so that's why but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because we're looking at the process, and you get there as a byproduct. That's fantastic. You know what I mean?
So taking this to your first point, I'm not arguing to not I do have an argument against homework, but I'm not necessarily saying don't give homework. What I'm saying is that, what if a student is able to still perform on a valid assessment, if I decided that this assessment actually measures the extent to which a student is able to do a particular thing? What if a student is able to perform in that thing? What if my brother could just wake up and run 3:45? So I needed the training. But the person who could just wake up and do it, are we gonna get different numbers? And so my argument is, if I know that this homework, to your point, I agree with you and I believe you when you say that this homework is there because it's part of the process that's gonna help you grow. But if you grow in another way, I have to honor that as well. And
Like in
that's,
math, showing your understanding.
sorry,
Like in math in elementary,
yeah.
you have to show your
I was just
thinking.
gonna say that.
And
My
then some
daughter
people
got
don't.
something wrong.
Mine
She got the right answer, but the wrong process,
Yeah,
and she got the thing wrong.
I
I'm like,
know.
what's the thing?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
result is the most important thing.
Yeah, the result, so I think that the grade, we're gonna get to the process piece. But the grade, when we talk about grades showing up on a report card,
In other countries, they don't care about projects, they don't care about homework. Like baccalaureate is just one test at the end, and that's gonna take one test. And in my
Yeah.
country, and then you're gonna go to to college.
Yeah.
They don't care.
and so we're gonna get to how I think we solve for some of the issues that you're bringing up. But what I also, part of what I'm bringing up here is that I use my son's example of like, I mean, again, when he was in second grade, his teacher was talking about how he was, when they had circle time, he was like literally upside down in the corner over there.
Yes.
And then she was like, but he always has an answer, like he's always engaged. And like, we're both teachers. But I was like, so is he hurting anybody? And she was like super cool. To this day, I love this teacher. I owe her so much. But it was in this moment in particular where it's just like, here's this kid who's super engaged in the discussion, and it looks like he's upside down over there. And there's probably several kids who are sitting very nicely, hands crossed on their lap, don't know what the hell is going on in the circle time discussion. And who are we as teachers trained to reward? And who are we as teachers trained to tell are a problem?
But that's why giving homework that is reflected, and also district-wide homework can't be worth more than 10%.
Yeah.
Like no
Can't.
teacher in this
Yeah.
district can give homework that's worth more than 10%, right? And I always tell them, I said the 10% is mathematically, you can not do any of your homework. And if you still get the result, you could probably get an A in this class. I said, that's not the point.
Yeah.
That's not the point, right? It's not about the math, it's about the process.
Yes. And again, if there's a kid who has to come home and take care of their siblings when they get home, next to a kid who has a tutor in every subject who sits down and walks them through, how do we account for that kid who's 13 and has to be a parent when they come home until their mom gets off, whatever. And so,
Study hall.
These kids have got gobs of time during the day also.
No, I teach at both schools, at this high school, and I teach at our third school, which is
Yeah.
called the Academy.
mhm.
And the students there are coming from various places. When they no longer can go to either of these schools, they go there. Some of them have exactly the situation you're talking about. So we cannot, I can't penalize them for the fact that they have to go to work, or they went to court, or
Well, they-
something like that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff
And
going on.
it can be any, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the super
Right.
salacious, like,
Right.
it's my parents are divorced and I left my notebook at my dad's house.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be, I'm doing my homework under the street lamp, like, it's not always that.
then
But it also
when
is
they
that.
come to talk to you, and then you say, no worries, what can we do? Okay, I'll give you another day to do that. Or, why don't, you know, I'm here until 2:18
Yeah,
every
that's
single day
more
after
helpful
school, so
sense.
why don't you come after school and we can work on it together? Thing is that you build a relationship with your students so that's never gonna come up. Like, I don't think a student, like if a student couldn't do their homework because of a certain situation, I would let them make it up, you know? It's not like I'm punishing them for, you know, for the salacious situation.
I think what I'm describing is more about the systemic piece that makes this significantly more challenging for some students than others. And again, may show up in their performance of my measurement of the extent to which my students have achieved a particular goal. But if it doesn't, which is often the case with Black and brown kids, that I might still be able to get a 3:45 on the marathon. But y'all keep telling me that because I'm upside down, y'all, us, we keep telling me because I'm upside down over here, and because I showed up late to practice, and because now you just told me that my marathon time is 4.5 hours. But like I was there when I ran it. You know, and that other kid who has the structure to help him show up to practice on time, you told that kid that he gets extra credit. And so his time, even though we both ran it, his time is 3 hours and, you know, whatever. And what I'm hoping to do as a teacher is to allow space for success for everyone and to do the best that I can, knowing that I'm never going to eliminate everything, do the best that I can to minimize the extent to which these circumstances that are out of the control of my students to affect how they view, because another piece we were talking about earlier, praise and stuff, how they view their fitness here. Because again, the overwhelming majority of people who study languages in the United States don't come out feeling like they're proficient. And those numbers are even lower for Black and brown kids. And so how can I orient the feedback that I give to reflect the fact that you actually can do a lot of things in this language. Most of y'all in this classroom can. Y'all pretending that y'all, right? And those barriers that have otherwise convinced you that you're a bad student don't apply in this room. Those things that you keep seeing show up, the teacher, I was just talking about this before, I'm sorry, but whatever. I like that y'all are allowing this conversation to go again. Me teaching in Colombia has informed and like given me so much to learn and think about. And one of the things, I thought I would see way less disruptive behavior, but I don't. Behaviors are off the chain. And this is in a like private school where there's a ton of wealth in a space where the wealth gap is like bigger than it is here. And one of the things, so I see insane behaviors, but I also, there are some things culturally that I internalize as disrespect. Because I don't believe in talking over people. So I'm like, what the, like what? You're just having a full talk, like a full conversation over here? And so I'm like, because I'm new in this situation, I'm taking that, and it might actually be that. But culturally, I'm bringing this thing here, and then that's affecting the way how I'm viewing this kid's studentship and all that, when really it's like they may see giving your undivided attention to a speaker through a different cultural lens. And so if I'm now putting participation in their grade, and I'm filtering it through my lens of what positive engagement looks like that's a culturally biased one, and these kids, and then boys speak more than girls, or girls speak more, like all these different things that then is just gonna like get in the way of this kid thinking that he's gonna be successful. So I have a duty as a person in this space to figure out what the cultural norms are, to establish what my classroom norms are, because I still don't believe in that, right? I still believe that when I'm talking, shut the hell up, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still believe in my space, I need you to do that. But I'm saying all that to say that I believe that we, in order to foster growth and success for as many students as possible, particularly those whom the system has historically left behind, we have a duty to unpack a lot of those things. That doesn't mean give up homework. I don't personally give homework so much, but my suggestion to other teachers isn't necessarily that. It's more to say, can we start to unpack what we're doing when we give homework, what we're doing when we give a particular type of test, what we're doing when we are taking points away or giving points to students based on different things. And again, I may be wrong about some of this stuff, but my biggest encouragement is to collectively start to unpack that stuff and to start to figure out how as a community, whether it be in a department, whether it be within just one language, whether it be as an entire school district, to figure out what our shared goals are and what our shared language is and communicate it as often and as clearly as we can to all of the stakeholders involved. So, my brother, as I was asking him about some of the stuff, he said most of the training was geared to preparing my body for that type of mileage. So over the course of 12 weeks, my weekly mileage increased incrementally until the last few weeks. Last few weeks, he had a goal and then he created a path toward getting to that. And none of those things are directly communicated in 345. This was just what he did because that's what he believed would help him get to 345. So, here's another biggie, is 94 means what? I don't know. 89 means what? I don't know. But we also, if I have, I'm not sure, you said 10% is homework district-wide is like what y'all do?
Maximum.
Maximum, but I can do less?
Yes.
Or- Okay. Is there agreement about what the other categories in a grade book are?
No, and that's very, which I actually kind of like, because like what we do in our department has worked incredibly well in that we do it 10%, 90%. So 10% is homework, 90% is literally everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we decided, and what I realized was that I was letting these ridiculous categories that we made up, like the first day of school every year, determine how I was assessing. And I'm like, that's a bunch of crap, you know, like I can't.
Can I ask, so your categories are, you
Are-
have two categories,
We
or you
literally
have?
two categories.
Because we essentially, at the middle school level, we have 10, 30, 30, 30.
Yeah, no.
So ultimately, it's the same, but we are putting in arbitrary of, okay, classwork, this is this, this is.
Yeah, no, we just decided to do 90-10 and it's worked incredibly well.
Cool, that's cool to
And so
know.
we call it homework is the 10% and then something called general assessment, which can mean anything from a little speaking quiz to an exit thing to a classwork to, I give every month I give like a engagement participation grade that I can argue with you about as
How
well.
is it weighted?
And,
I'm here for this, by the way, I don't take any of this as like a battle,
No,
but
I
I will
know,
argue,
I know.
we can argue all day.
How are they weighted against each other? No, categorizing the activities within that 90%, are they weighted separately or
No,
no?
it's not by points, it's just percentages, so like no matter, so if I give 100-point test, it's gonna be worth like, you know, if that gets, well, let's say 100-point, I'm making this stuff up because I never give 100-point test, but let's say I did. So a 100-point test is in the 90% category,
Yeah.
but then also a 10-point quiz is also in the 90%
And an exit
category.
ticket is the same, so they're all worth the same amount?
Well, no, because the more points you give to
Yeah.
something, the more weight it has percentage-wise, because it's more.
So,
No,
Okay,
okay,
bigger.
so total points, but with categories kind of.
total points within the
Well,
category.
What's within the category?
Total points
Right,
to
I
give
suppose.
it weight,
Total-
and then
total
percentage to
Right.
give them their grade
Correct.
value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So-
So the more important quote-unquote
I understand,
assessments are gonna be more points so that they take up more of that.
Right.
90%. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Ben, can I give you a scenario?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what makes
It's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Okay. This is gonna be a hard question.
Yes, I am ready.
Yeah.
I get to go home after this, y'all gotta work together.
Yeah.
Spanish for honors.
working
Yeah.
much better for us.
I have been like rewriting it, piloting, rewriting it for,
Decided to all do this at home.
I've been piloting, rewriting Spanish for honors for like 3 years.
Mhm.
And trying out proficiency-based learning and whatever. My question is kind of like a 2 or 3 part question, I don't know. My question is, Spanish for honors is the precursor to AP, right?
Okay.
It's the class before AP.
Mhm.
we don't want to discourage kids from taking 4 honors. However, I have 2 students right now that do not understand what's happening in class, and their friends are very sweet, and they're translating my directions for them, and it makes me crazy. Because I'm standing here using cognates
Yeah.
for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then they're getting translated to, which is fine. Do I seem bitter about that?
Which
That happened yesterday.
is cool, I'm totally.
No,
with that.
but, and then I have kids who are coming in from Spanish 3 honors who are very, who understand a heck of a lot more.
Mhm.
So I guess I have a couple of questions. One, like Liz, you do no tracking, which is very cool. I just don't, like, what do you do with the difference in those kids? The kid that could be ready for AP in a couple months and the kid that is gonna really, really struggle in this class because I'm speaking in Spanish. What do you do with those 2 types of learners? And also, if a student enters with a high achieving, like the student is just high achieving and they understand a lot, and you're doing proficiency based and you want them to reach a certain goal, what does that goal look like versus the student that really doesn't understand what's going on? What does their goal look like?
Yeah.
And you're in the same class.
Yeah. So, part of what I think is the challenge with this is that you just explained that with incredible clarity.
Okay.
Right? I fully understand what one student needs to work on and what other students' strengths are. And then so we'll take all of that information that you just communicated clearly to me and say, make it a number out of 100. And then explain what that number means, instead of us just being able to do that. And so much of what I'm advocating for, and again, all these books and stuff, whatever, and there are schools and programs that do this, right? This isn't just Ben Tinsley's idea. And schools and programs that are incredibly successful, is to focus mostly on that communication to say, hey, you are, like, if our goal is for you to be able to perform at a particular level that would result in getting this grade on the AP exam, what you're doing in class is going to help you grow in the language, but it's not at the rate that would guarantee or whatever that would likely lead to you being successful on this thing. Like, that's the conversation that I
Well,
think
then
is real
where-
feedback.
Where does the student who can already speak using 3 different tenses,
Yeah.
you know, the
Yeah.
intermediate high kid that comes in
Mhm,
and in October they're really, really performing,
mhm.
what is their goal? And then what is their grade?
Yeah.
Versus the other kid who wants to be in the class. I've
Mhm.
asked, like,
Yeah,
would you
yeah,
be more
yeah, yeah,
comfortable?
Yeah.
And wants to be there, and what am I gonna say? No? Drop down? No,
Yeah,
you
sure,
know?
sure.
But,
So, in this presentation is how we take all that and turn it
Okay.
into a grade. And, yeah, that's in,
okay,
that's in.
I'll wait.
But the short version is, there is if I've established that for this class, we're aiming toward this thing, and someone is doing above and beyond, then they're exceeding the goal. And so their grade is whatever the grade
Even if
is
they
for.
came in that way,
Yeah,
and then they're just.
yeah, and ideally, I can still give them feedback about what growth for them looks like. And so I can say, you know, you're running the marathon in this much time, and everybody else, our actual goal is to just be under 4 hours, so you're doing amazing. But if you want to continue to see growth, like, here's some stuff that will help you do that. But really, you're killing the 26-mile timer that we wanted for everybody. You're killing it. And this is how you could still grow.
Just to share, because I have really been trying to focus on this for my second year at Milford, and last week I was introducing the targets, the proficiency targets as we are learning them, and the goals for each of our levels, and then I had them do an assignment, and then I gave them painstaking feedback, all period, while they were working on something individually, and I loved it because I got to speak to each of the kids, talk to them about literal things that they wrote and did well, and specific things using the rubric I was grading them with
Yeah.
on how they can improve and go higher.
Mhm.
And there were a lot, like mixed results because I had some kids who were just like, I was telling them all this stuff, I was doing all this, I was trying to get through when it comes to the proficiency side, but then there was no grade written on the paper because I didn't want them freaking out. I didn't want them seeing the page saying 80 or whatever.
Mhm.
So then they would be like, there would be those kids who would be like, okay, so what does that mean? What's the grade?
What's great?
And I'm like, all right, well, that's not the priority here. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
really
yeah.
trying to. And then there were some kids that would come up who do have, like, this is, I'm talking about 7th grade in particular, ADHD or accommodations where the kids, like, had a low, like, they have low self-confidence in the language. And I showed them that they got, like, novice mid
Mhm.
on this specific writing sample.
Mhm.
And, like, to see some of those kids be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Like,
did that. Like,
And I will say it was essential to teach them the results or the language output with English first to be like, I mean, there's tons of like activities you can do where like I just had them, there's the one of like the scoops of proficiency where it's like the ice
Sure.
cream.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just being like, okay, an intermediate low can do, when I was a child and I went to my beach with my family, I ate ice cream and I loved vanilla and this and that. And then the novice low would be something like chocolate ice cream cold.
Yeah.
And like
Which
with
still
misspellings and stuff.
communicates a thing.
Right, and so we really talked about that.
Mhm.
And so with the assessment that I'm leading them into now, I'm toying with the idea of, since I've given them like a baseline, novice low, novice whatever, having them choose the rubric based off of the proficiency level, and then having them use that rubric to guide whatever their assessment
Yeah.
is. Let you know how it goes.
Yeah, keep us posted.
But yeah,
Real quick, I'm sorry, y'all, but are we done at 3 or at 3:30?
3:30.
3:30. Okay, awesome.
Oh,
Sorry. So part of what I believe has been helpful for me has been to create three categories in my grade book that reflect the 3 modes of communication. Specifically because if I want my grades to be more feedback, like communication of the extent to which a student has achieved a particular goal, then my challenge when we combine everything to be just a number out of 100 is that I don't know that they're getting information about what they're good at and what they're great at and where their areas of growth are. But I also don't believe in creating too much minutia that loses everything in the sauce. And so given that these are the 3 modes of communication here, that if I am saying I'm going to be measuring your interpretive communication in the target language, I'm going to be measuring your interpersonal communication in the target language, I'm going to be measuring your presentational communication in the target language, and I'm going to give you feedback about those things. And if, again, when me, adult Ben, lives in Colombia right now, the overwhelming majority of stuff that I have to do in this new language for me is interpretive. Most of what I have to do is demonstrate that I understand. And demonstration that I understand sometimes is a thumbs up, but sometimes it's buying the right notebooks for my son. Because I went to back to school night and they're telling me about what notebooks they need. And they have an insane amount of notebooks in school supplies. And this one has to have this, they're like grid paper and you gotta have the right amount of grids. It's nuts.
the A4.
What's that?
No, just the sizes.
Yo, yes!
Yeah, just because they're not assigned individual Chromebooks.
Yeah, also that. Yeah, also that. But there's 45 different notebooks. But I have to, so if that is what real language use looks like, real world language use looks like, then how much of class time and instruction should be in training that muscle? And then how much of my language use is interpersonal? Which, like, I got friends at the gym now. You know what I'm saying? Just some dudes that I saw every day, and now I chop it up with them. And, like, you know, one dude asked me to buy him an iPhone while I'm here. Gave me a second one.
Quick
I
question.
also gotta bring like a couple of things of sugar and flour, I think, that he asked me. I'm just kidding.
Quick question to that.
Alright.
Quick question to the categories.
Yeah.
Which I since forgot it immediately. So I'll let you know if it comes
Your
back.
question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Speaking of ADHD.
Yeah, here we are. Yeah. So when I do that, my goal is to be able to tell a student, this was our target in interpretive communication, and you are demonstrating that you're meeting that. And here's what I wanted y'all to be able to do in interpersonal communication, and here's what you're really good at. Here's some areas for growth for you. Here's how I can see you growing, and here's presentational communication that, again, like, I don't know how many times in life you're gonna have to write without any tools. But here's how it can help you, because I have had to write a few emails, and I have had to write a couple text messages, right? I have had to do a handful of things that was like, you know, whatever. But it is nowhere near as like practical as me being able to like go back and forth with this person that I'm talking to and be able to think on the fly and circumlocute and ask for clarity and all that. And so that's why we spend this much class time on that, and that's why whatever. But all of this is before I've assigned a number to anything. My goal is to be able to give you feedback as to the extent to which you are growing in these areas. Yeah, I do want to kind of try to move a little bit. So the weighting, when will these different modes matter most? And I think, again, we could go on for days about this, but I think that the extent to which I am buying into the grade at the end, I think that their demonstration of comprehension, and this isn't just my idea, this in these books we talk about this stuff too, and ACTFL talks a lot about this, that we should give heavier weights to interpretive communication. We should allow for, because that's what's going to foster growth in the other modes of communication as well, and that we should spend more time with that. But what's most important isn't about what my weighting is, it's that what I am weighting and what I'm measuring is going to match up to some extent to what you're measuring. Yeah? So if a student is, not just for the sake of preparing them for your class, but if we as an entire program are working toward a common aim, then how can we continue to like serve the student as opposed to restarting every year and now they're like, oh, this teacher really wants me to do this. How can we make sure that we're preparing that kid? To Liz's point also, there's only so much acquisition and language proficiency growth that can happen in high school. But what we do know is that we can prepare them to believe that they can go out into the world and continue to grow. And so what I like to describe it as getting them to escape velocity. Like I was 15 when I moved to France as an exchange student. And what the language most of my French happened there. I spent the year of 10th grade in France. What I went there with is so much less than what my students have right now. Whether they go to study abroad or whether they just, you know, again, I worked at a restaurant with this dude from Côte d'Ivoire and I talked to him all the time, and then my people were from Haiti and I could talk to grandma. Like if they just take advantage of these opportunities to use their language, they have a ton of tools, right? And I'm promising you, no one in any of these scenarios that they're talking about is going to ask them to list all 6 forms of any verb in all of them. You know what I'm saying? 0 of those people are. But if they believe that that's what successful language use looks like because they got an A or an F in your class, then they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to talk to that dude that I work with because I'm bad at Spanish. My teacher told me because I was upside down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but then that's going back to the usefulness thing though, which I think is problematic because then again, you're not giving enough credit or power to the process of actually learning something, not because it's going to be quote unquote useful, but because just the process of learning that thing is important. Like most of these kids are not going to be doing advanced calculus. That doesn't mean that learning calculus is not important.
I don't think I said that.
You know, but that's the way I think of grammar, like of teaching explicit grammar. Like, are they going to be mixing this into their language on the AP exam? Maybe a little, but it's the process of learning the grammar and putting all of these things together that we've learned. It's like math, you know, and there's value in that.
I think that there's value in it, but it is at the expense of, scientifically, of language acquisition, number one. Number two, I think that the value that you can find in that, you can find in other things that do not cost you language acquisition. So the mental exercise piece, right? I believe that part of what our job is to get them to use their brains,
Yeah.
like, and to think about things. So early in our session, I talked a lot about questioning in a way that fosters higher order thinking. That's a mental process that I hope that they get here that isn't directly connected to language acquisition and proficiency growth, but that I think is very important to process and being able to think things out. So we don't necessarily have to agree about the grammar thing. Where we do agree is that getting them to understand and appreciate the process, I don't think we're losing. In fact, I think we're supporting that when we do things this way. But we don't have to agree. So, what are we grading then? And so what I'm going to do is a communicative task. I believe, and again, just drawing on my experience right now, there are certain things, quote unquote, real world scenarios that I find myself to be like either kind of successful in, or I wasn't able to accomplish that thing, or like I killed it. And like those situations, when I'm talking to the woman at the register at the grocery store right now, and I'm able to understand now, like, cuántas cuotas? I learned that quota is how many different payments you want to divide your credit card payment into. It took me a month to figure out what they were asking, right? So now I just know to like say just one, right? And whatever sorts of things happen there, there's these things, real world scenarios that I can be successful in, or other times when straight up I've gone and tried to pay for something and I didn't understand what they were asking me. And so I actually wasn't able to buy the thing because I'm not sure what you're asking me. Right? And so the feedback there is that I wasn't successful in that task. And so what I believe, I'm trying to move a little bit faster through this, is in providing communicative tasks for our students that we can then give. That's not to say that we don't have other exercises. That's not to say that when you're training for a race, you're not going to do that thing that like, high knees and stuff. You're not literally going to be running with high knees. But if I give you that, it's because it's an exercise that's going to help you when you actually have to run the marathon. Yeah? But running the marathon is the thing that I'm going to like eventually say you were successful or you almost met it or whatever. And so our grades should reflect not the tools that we give them, but more the tasks that we give them that are real communicative tasks. And so they should be based on those categories, the interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational categories that we do. So here's a couple of different scenarios, and I'm going to see if we can agree if this is a communicative task, if language communication is happening, if someone's using language in order to accomplish a thing, or if it's an exercise. And exercises are not bad. They're just not necessarily communicative tasks. So is it communicative or not? Y'all with me? Communicative or not? A scavenger hunt to find portraits or murals from around campus based on a list of descriptions in the target language.
Communicative.
Is that a communicative task or not?
Yeah, it's interpretive. Could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It depends.
Who thinks it is a communicative task? Who thinks it's not a communicative task?
Exercise.
Who isn't entirely sure? Yeah. If it's a communicative task, what mode? Is it presentational, or are they creating something so that an audience member would be able to read it? It'd be interpretive communication, yeah? Yeah, so this is a communicative task, yeah? And if they had a description in the target language, this is a thing that a colleague of mine did. Because a school where I worked had a hall of murals. And so we had a bunch of like descriptions of the different of the portraits, sorry. The portraits of different people, the head of school from 1891 or whatever. And so based on those descriptions, this is a man, he's wearing glasses and he has blonde hair and he was whatever. And so students had to go and demonstrate comprehension of those things, yeah? So yeah, I'd say this one is a communicative task. May not necessarily be like literally a real world task, but it reflects a real world thing. If you needed to pick somebody up or you got to meet with somebody and someone gave you a description of who to look for, so you don't, let's get in somebody else's car.
You know what I mean?
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
for real, this is a real thing. Yeah?
Yeah.
Another one?
See,
Communicative or null? Find out the top 3 most popular types of serial among the members of the class in the target language.
Yeah, interpersonal.
Definitely.
Would we say it's a communicative task in the target language? And it is, I think I heard it, but what mode? Interpersonal. And so go into, I'll send y'all the extended reading list if you have time and space at all. I happen to love nerding out on this stuff, but Bill Van Patten has a book that was published through Act 4 that's really helpful talking about what communicative tasks are and the role that it plays in language acquisition. And so here, the surface level thing is to ask people, what's your favorite type of cereal? That's a communicative thing, but he would argue that it's not a communicative task because we're not doing anything with that information. If I just say, name your favorite type of cereal, then it's just throwing something out there. But if I have to listen to it in order to figure out what are the top 3 most popular ones, that's going to foster that much more language acquisition because I have to do something with that information that I'm listening to and asking for. So the more we can set up tasks like that, it doesn't mean that it's not helpful to be like, to spend a minute talking about this is how you say, I like whatever. These are the forms of the verb to like, right? But those are the tools that you give in order for them to be able to do something like this. So I might be able to work backward and say, what sorts of tools do I need to teach in order for students to be able to do this? Yeah, making it a task, whatever. Communicative or not? Fill in the blank with the appropriate form of the verb in parentheses using the preterite tense. Communicative or not? All right. Is it, how many people would say it's communicative? It's a communicative task. How many people would say it's not a communicative task? How many people are not sure? Yeah. Those saying it's not a communicative task, why not?
Because it's not asking you to do anything with your own understanding and original language.
Yeah. How many people, well, for someone who says it is a communicative task,
But it's not original. I mean, in the respect of if it's communicative or if it's an exercise, if you're producing the verb correctly in the context of the sentence, you're doing the exercise and you're understanding the rules, but you're not creating the language originally from yourself.
Yeah.
But but in that case, in order for you to fill in the blank with the appropriate form of the verb, you have to read the paragraph, and then that would be interpretive communication.
Right.
maybe, but,
Only if you chose a piece of the
so,
document.
this is actually from one of the books. But the argument here is that I could fill out the appropriate form of the verb and not understand any of that sentence.
Yeah.
I could have just memorized that when I see in parentheses nous, I have to put O and S on the end of this
That's
verb.
what I did.
And not understand what was being communicated in the sentence. I was just matching things, which doesn't mean that it doesn't have value, but it's not a communicative task for that reason. In order for it to have been a communicative task, I have to understand the meaning that's being communicated there. And I don't necessarily need to have understood the meaning if I can match the form of the verb.
Right, which doesn't
But-
devalue the text.
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
devalue the exercise, but it is in itself not a communicative task.
Would you say then that there's just that finding the balance of how much am I doing communicative, how much am I doing exercise?
So-
What do the students need?
Yeah, so part of my thing is, again, I'm not a runner, but I have seen people train for running by doing like these guys, right? Something like that. I think I may have just torn my Achilles. But if I know that that's going to help my students, then I absolutely should set aside some time for them to be able to do that. But if that's all I do, I can't in good conscience say you get a 3 hours and 45 minutes on your marathon time. Because I've never seen you run a marathon. And this is not even a simulation of running a marathon. Right? You want to see me do that dance again? So my grade, the exercises that I do should be helpful toward running the marathon in the time that we've set that we want to run the marathon. I should also honor the student that finished the marathon in 5 hours. I should set whatever, but the exercises that I do are valuable. They are just not in themselves a measurement of how fast someone runs a marathon. Yeah? Communicative or not? I got a couple more. Communicative or not? Read 2 journal entries and write about what the 2 characters have in common and what distinguishes them. Is this a communicative task or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Qui dit oui? Je pense que oui. Yeah. Who thinks so? Who thinks no? Yeah. Yeah. Can I just ask real quick? This is going to sound, I don't want this to sound as condescending as I think I may hear it if I were in your seat, but have answering these questions about whether or not they're communicative gotten easier as we've talked about this right now than it was with the first one. And so what I would encourage is to have more conversations like this about what are the tasks, because I think now we're seeing a lot more agreement, that there's a bit more of a shared understanding. But with the first few, I don't know that it was that they were more confusing, I think we just didn't necessarily have a shared understanding. Christian?
Well, I was just gonna say I appreciate you saying that. I think there's value in the exercise. You know, like already I had kind of made up my mind that tomorrow I need to work on some writing with these kids and whatever. I agree. I think there's value, and also I think what's gotten maybe an easier, maybe a shift, at least in my mind, is like that previous example you just put up there. So you can take that exercise and make it communicative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Could you not? But
Yeah. So can we go back? This right here?
Yeah.
So I actually meant to ask this. Is there something that we could do similar to this? Think of preterite. There is no preterite in French, but there's like passé composé, yeah? What's something that would involve this that could be a communicative task? I got an example that maybe y'all could. Here, I'm gonna throw this out.
You could do those weekend chats.
Boom. Weekend chat. What'd you do this weekend? Who had the busiest weekend? We have to find out, or find the person in the class who had a weekend most similar to yours. Let's find the person in your group that had the most chill weekend. So there's the task, and I need to use I don't need to also, by the way, because you actually can get there with just using the infinitive, which language teachers hate to hear. But again, if I was in Colombia right now and I just said, yo ir Connecticut, trabajo.
They get the point, yeah.
100%. And the feedback that I'll likely get, and again, I've been like really taking notes on this shit. Sorry. I've been taking notes on this stuff. The feedback that I get is clarification of meaning. And so when I say something like that and I make an error, most times the person will either be like, wait, what do you mean? And then, ask me to clarify, or they will just reframe it correctly for me. And these are not teachers. These are just people, right? Uber drivers that I'm talking to, and I'm trying to say this thing, and I say it a little bit clumsily, and they'll just let me know whether or not they understood. And then if I said it weird, then they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. That's what real world feedback has looked like for me. But that's never been the case in my learning of languages in school. Feedback was always, did you memorize this or not?
French people all the time.
So, which I think I may be hearing this, but also culturally, there's folks who will correct you, but what does that really look like? And what communicative consequences there? But anyway, We did this one. I think there's one more. Let's do one more. Cumulative or null. One by one, students meet with the teacher in the hallway to show that they can count from 1 to 2,000.
That's like 2 periods right there.
Yeah. BT dubs, none of these are made up. These are all things that either I've done or I've seen teachers do, colleagues do.
It's not communicative.
Who thinks it is? Who thinks it's not communicative? Why not, for those who think that it's not?
It seems to have a drill.
So if it were presentational, it looks most like presentational communication, yeah?
But there's no interaction, there's no like, you know,
Yeah.
like there's no set away purpose. Like this is just a drill.
Yeah, so presentational means that it is not necessarily back and forth, but there's still a communicative purpose. There's still a message that's being sent in presentational communication. And so, is there a message being sent by me going through the numbers?
It's just like somebody that comes up to me and says, "Oh, I took Latin," and they go down the first declension completely and give me every single ending. It's like, you know, like I get that you're like trying the communicative, but you're showing me that you did a drill 10,000 times. You're not actually this is the numbers that I know, and this is how we progress through our number line. This is literally just me drilling.
Just drilling. Which, like, you know, I don't know. I never studied Latin, so I don't know. I don't know. So, a suggestion, and this is another thing that I've done, instead of showing me that you can count from 1 to 2,000, because I've never in my life had to do that, ever. Never. That's never been a thing I've needed to do. But what I have had to do is talk about what years things happened. And that's where me having knowledge of numbers from 1,000 to 2,000, right, have actually come in handy, is knowing what year, that's why I would need to do that. And what I've learned is that students internalize those things, they learn them so much more when it's in the context of using it to do a thing, right? And so students compare timelines of major life events between two characters by year. You know, French teachers, you'll know how hard it is to get kids to understand 80, 90, 80. Right, and I spent 10 years trying to explain that 70 in certain places, but not everybody does it like this. And 70 in certain places is 60 plus 10, and then I'm going to be adding like that. But it has been, or 80s, I use 80 as an example. That's been so hard to do, but what's been so much easier is when I say I was born in 1985, right? And this person was born in 1989. What year was I born? And then all of a sudden they're able to say 85. Because it's attached to meaning, as opposed to, can you just memorize this thing and rattle it off? So when it's attached to meaning, that's when, and then I can say like, all right, but I also started school when I was 5. What year did I start school? And then they're like, it's a little bit of math, but they're like, all right, I was born in 1985. He was born in 1985, and 85 plus, so now, I'm gonna start getting a bunch of stuff. And it may be 90, but it may not be. But in all likelihood, when they make something clumsy, and I reframe it like the Uber driver does for me, it's gonna stick. Because they used it for a purpose.
My kids are learning about checking into a hotel.
Yeah.
And we were talking about if you forget your room key. My kids, they cannot do numbers. It's just like it's like a problem.
Yeah.
So I realized it, and so I gave them I gave them each a note card with like random numbers on it, and I was like, ¿Cuál es tu habitación? ¿Cuál es el número? Like, yo soy la recepcionista, you know?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they
yeah,
had
yeah.
to like give me the room number, so it kind of made it like relevant a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure. Yeah, it's attaching the real life thing to it.
It was more fun than being like,
Yeah.
Cinco, yes.
Yeah, and so, like earlier, I showed y'all the statistic of the day. The amount of complaints I got about that last year, I started doing it last year. The amount of complaints I got about it at first because it's math and it feels like boring a little bit. But I'm telling you, by Thanksgiving, I didn't have to do anything anymore. They knew it was part of our routine. Every day we're gonna do this, that, and then we have to do the statistic of the day. And the numbers, the way how they just started flowing out, because they just know they've attached meaning to these things, right? And so saying 20, like, to not get kids saying 16, right? Because there's a word says for 16, and then we start the 10 plus whatever. I've explained that for 10 years, and they've never acquired it. But when I'm every day using those numbers, it sticks, right? And so creating tasks like that, and then I can give feedback according to the proficiency targets as they perform those things. And I'm
Ben,
gonna
couple things, real
Yeah.
quick. The statistic of the day, I think that's really cool. Like that's you do that every day.
Yeah.
How long does that take? 10 minutes beginning of class?
So it
20
depends
minutes?
on which one.
Okay.
Honestly, the one that we did today is one that took longer,
Yeah.
takes up more time.
Can you give an example of like what you mean by that?
What I mean by,
Well, like statistic about.
oh, I'm sorry, were you?
No, like the statistic of the day.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I modeled it earlier, but it was, so on Mondays,
Are the ones that were on the slide, every week you do those?
Yeah.
Every
We do
week?
the same one.
So the same ones every,
Oh,
because it
was
could
because
change.
it was like, how
Yeah.
long does it take?
and then at the
to
end of the
get
month,
to
we'll be
school?
like, yo, Tuesdays,
Mm.
you know, this earlier in the month, we were spending a lot more time.
Percentage of like.
Yeah.
Oh, so you can track it over a longer period of time too.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no.
How do you come up with all these?
No, I just had, I have one, Mondays, we do this. The Monday one is what percentage of the class went to someone else's house this weekend?
Oh, okay.
And here's,
It's always the same, though, on Monday?
Monday we do that.
But your answer is always different.
Our answer is going to be different.
Oh, okay.
So, ce week-end tu es allé, moi je ne suis pas allé chez quelqu'un d'autre ce week-end. Le week-end dernier, oui, je suis allé chez mon ami. Et toi, tu es allé chez quelqu'un d'autre ce week-end? Everybody's taking notes.
So
And
you're
again-
directing that though?
And so, worth naming is that my biggest class last year was 17. Y'all, how many people have a class with fewer than, 20, right? And so what I did in these spaces as well, which I think could make more sense, is gamifying everything, but being like, in a group of 4, I need you to be able to come up with what the average is in your group, and then the first group is gonna get this many points, the second group is gonna get this many. So it's not making everyone listen to 25 answers. We're gonna listen to 5, but we still have to do the communicative work of mapping out these things, getting, these numbers and being able to communicate it. Yeah, we'll have to share out, but now I have 5 different pods of that conversation happening, as opposed to the whole class thing. Or whatever, if you have 32 kids in your
No,
class.
yeah, I like that. I mean, we were talking a lot about it at the high school level, like routines and things like that. So
Mhm.
that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Like, I like that. I love that the kids walking in and knowing what they're doing, like right away, you know?
I'll share with y'all. I'm about to start posting this stuff because I did take a lot of videos last year. This is 100% me tooting my horn. But last year I was new at the school where I was, and there's video of me on the week of October 1st, where I sat back and I just I'm recording my own face, but you're hearing the students just speaking. The first 15 minutes of class is the students just speaking, because first we do this thing, we're gonna write about, not just speaking, but we're gonna write about what you're grateful for and what number you want on the blob tree, if y'all remember I shared that
I was
with
gonna
y'all
ask
last
if you
time.
still do those, as a routine.
So take 2 minutes to write about that, and then take 2 minutes to talk about it with a partner, and you gotta ask follow-up questions and all that. And then we got 2 minutes, this is the 2-minute drill. Then I'm gonna randomize and pick one person, and the whole class is gonna ask that person questions and follow-up questions. And so just that, and then we get into the statistic of the day, and that's another 10 minutes of just language use that happens. And they're different contexts, but it's still high frequency stuff and all that. So I spent, last year in particular, I would spend a good 20 minutes of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I struggle with feeling like, oh, when am I gonna get into content? But like, this is content, this is the stuff, I get to decide what it is.
I said to Liz too, like, I feel like that time, like, I think, and about last year, 2 years ago, did a whole thing on like infographics
Mm-hmm.
and the target language, and I mean that. I feel like it lends itself nicely to that. Then
Yeah.
comparing, you know, our class to either another class or comparing our class to this infographic.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
do enough with the infographics. I think it's
Yeah.
cool. I think there's a lot of value in them. And I know you guys talk about it on the AP.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of.
Yeah.
So an idea I had, I just didn't execute on it because I don't execute on things. But what can we do with the information about how long students are sleeping? So if the idea is the French class is doing a year-long study on sleep habits among students, or like the amount of time you spend doing homework. If our goal is to report out to the school, right? So the idea of having like an authentic audience, if we're gathering data that we're actually going to do something on, we can create a French language report of it. But also, even in English or whatever, we actually want to figure out like students are not sleeping enough. People are not getting enough sleep. And it's because we're doing something with the information that's going to make the task that much more compelling, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about screen time, we're actually going to report on how much screen time we're spending. So just every day, every Wednesday, I know in a group of 6 people, I'm going to talk about whether or not I slept, how long I slept. And what I was talking about before, I'm sorry, I'm going off on this stuff. But what I've learned through that task in particular is how many things we take for granted that students know. And elapsed time is not a thing that high schoolers know intuitively. So if I say, you went to bed at 10 p.m. last night and you woke up at 6 a.m., class, how many hours did they sleep? And they're friggin' lost. But here's an opportunity. I can say confidently that they got better at elapsed time in French class. And to Liz's point, my only job isn't to just teach language proficiency. It's not just to teach that, but in French class, through the exercises and through the activities that we did, I know that my students got better at talking about elapsed time and being able to see it and understand it, right? And so that building in interdisciplinary stuff in our classroom is a lot of what's going to help us to not just have this super narrow focus in terms of how we help them grow as people. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want to get.
Can I ask you a question about the groups though?
Yeah, I was gonna have one too.
Okay.
Not about the groups, because I'm really into the statistic of the day. But
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Uh-huh.
I have some classes that would eat that up and they would talk for 15 minutes and they would be great. And I have other classes.
They're going to stare at you.
No, they would talk, but they'd be excited to answer what it is, but it would all be in English.
Yeah.
And
I have that problem with the middle
If
school.
I have 5 groups, you know, and no matter how much I say, it all has to be in French and like all of this stuff, which is part of the reason why I have to give the participation engagement grade, which is usually, it always helps their grade, it never hurts it, right? So it's kind of like, but it at least, I have some leverage there because like if I have a table that's all saying like, oh, what time did you go to bed? Oh, I was playing
English.
Fortnite and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
technically they're talking about what they're supposed to be talking about, but not in French. And then, you know, I go over there and there are 4 other groups that are gonna get off task because I'm not standing in the middle of the room. But what do you, like, how do you get them all to be speaking in French at the same time?
So, I don't. Yeah, but I'll get into this in a little bit. When part of what I did is to, I'm jumping way ahead here. That's a communicative task that every now and then I'm gonna say is one of the things that's going in their portfolio. So they're gonna record that discussion, and then later, I'm jumping way ahead, but this is where I'm landing with y'all really. Is to say these are communicative tasks, and proficiency is different from performance. So ideally, proficiency is what you're able to do in unrehearsed, whatever sort of spontaneous situations. And so the word test is gonna skew my results because this kid has crippling anxiety and this kid, whatever. But if I'm just giving them multiple communicative tasks, this one we all know is interpersonal. And I want you to be able to talk about that thing. So record the conversation. And then later, I'm jumping way ahead here. The kids are intimately familiar with the rubric and the different subcategories and subcriteria and all that. I want you to upload this video to your portfolio, but I don't want the full 6 minutes. I want you to find your best 90 seconds. And it's through that process where the kids are looking at the rubric, watching their video, editing it, and they all know how, they're gonna act like they don't know how to edit videos, but they do.
And they just do that on their phones.
They can do it on their phones, or on their whatever, Chromebooks, all that. And so when I just give them communicative tasks, and then I say, all right, here's one of the ones you're gonna add to your portfolio later, that's gonna help. It's not gonna completely solve it, it's gonna help with that accountability piece.
Mm.
And it's also, because it's recorded, because there's only one teacher in the room, and I can't really control what's going on over there. But it's the idea that the kids are A, gonna record it, and B, that they're gonna have the opportunity to, I'm jumping, this is where I was gonna try to land the plane out. They're gonna have the opportunity to decide what their grade is. They're the ones who are gonna find their best 90 seconds. So it's through that process that they're actually gonna internalize what success looks like and what growth and stuff looks like so much more. And
What is this portfolio?
yeah, so I'm jumping way ahead. But how many tests in a marking period, how many tests would you give? Like summative assessments, if you do that? If you're a teacher who does like summative assessments, how many would you say you give? This is not, I feel like that sounded snarky when I said that.
No, I don't give any.
No.
One.
No?
I give
Maybe
kind of
one.
like progress.
One, yeah,
I give a lot of progress quizzes.
yeah. So you give quizzes, you're saying?
Yeah.
Is there, would other people agree that you give like quizzes and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would a quiz kind of, like what for y'all distinguishes a quiz from a test? As you're describing
It's
it?
fewer points usually.
So,
And it's also more frequent. So a
Okay.
test might be at the end of a unit or something like that.
Exactly.
And the quiz is kind of just like breaking it up so it doesn't seem like, oh my God, I have to learn everything that we've learned in the past month and a half and I'm gonna freak out.
yeah, so I think I'm in agreement with that. And I think it speaks to like the power of the language that we use. And so because to your point, that like, oh my God, I have to, that isn't always a reflection of what a student is capable of doing. I have students who are able to do so much with the language, but the word test,
Yeah.
Because it's so much, I
Yeah.
literally I don't use the word test.
Neither do I.
I
I
call
stopped-
literally everything
Matt, what do you use?
contrôle. Everything is a
Yeah.
contrôle.
Yeah.
I never use the
But-
word examen.
Yeah.
Jamais. Jamais.
Because-
c'est anxiogène, c'est tellement anxiogène. Je l'utilise plus le mot. Je l'utilise plus.
yeah. And so,
But even then, it's
So
pretty
tell me
good.
what.
Well, right.
Freaking
I did this last week on Monday. I'm like trying to be like, there's gonna be a.
Then I keep telling that like,
On va avoir un examen.
in the grand scheme of things, this is nothing. Like I'm very
Yeah.
frank with them. Like,
yeah.
you're gonna be stressed out when you're 35 too. This is just gonna help you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I can't get over the statistic of that.
Okay. Yo, I'll give you my cell phone number, bro. We'll talk about it.
I just think it's a genuine,
It's real.
like, is there, and I'm sure you've thought about this,
Mm.
that, like, pros and cons on getting the same one Monday through Friday every week versus mixing it up a little bit and keep
So-
on their toes and.
Yeah. So one thing,
I
So
know.
give me A day, B day,
Yeah.
C day.
because what I learned through doing that is
Yeah.
that we have more Mondays off than any other day.
Sure.
And so that one just didn't get as much love.
Yeah.
And then there was some class, it just would fall that some classes I'd see on Tuesday every time, so it just felt like whatever. We
Have you
had
ever
a
switched it
7
up?
day.
Like you see kids you're getting maybe bored or you just do the same thing every week?
It got to the point last year where the boredom meant like, gosh, we still gotta do this. You know, it was just part of the thing.
Okay.
I also have another system that I use with points that doesn't factor into the grades, but they're just getting like class dojo points.
Mhm.
So everything is an opportunity to get class dojo points. You can answer in single words, complete sentences, whatever, and you
Yeah.
answer another thing. So they saw it as like an opportunity to do that. It's kind of like dangling the thing. But I do think in retrospect, I think finding a way to rotate it differently
Okay.
would help.
Okay. I'm done with it. That's it.
Yeah, let's go.
That's it.
Change
Done.
your group sets sometimes, right?
Yeah, totally.
We're gonna get different
Mm-hmm.
I like
Totally,
it.
yeah.
I got you.
Totally.
And for the record, I feel like such an asshole that I just asked you for an example and you did like a literal like half an hour.
Yeah.
I just, honest to God, I did not remember that you were calling that. I just, it was the word statistic that threw me off.
Yeah, it's okay.
I was thinking like infographic.
Yeah.
No. No, it's all good. You might still be an asshole, but not for
Look
that.
at me. Fair. Fair.
It's all good.
That's it, Patrice points.
Yeah, it's all good.
Figure out, listen to my question.
It is all good. It is all good. You saw how I felt, how I like fielded the question. I was like, you know.
I was like, is he gaslighting me?
I also might be gaslighting you, but not for
And
that reason as
I
well.
know.
So I'm gonna try to, because I know I have 28 minutes. This time just freaking flies by. But grades end up not meaning much in terms of I don't know how often a student can say I got a 92 and that means that I'm able to do the following things. Or I got a 98 and that means that I'm able to do the following things. Put me in, Mom, we're in this space and you have to like have something translated, you have to be able to talk to this person. I'm your guy because I know that I'm capable of doing this because I got this grade in this thing. I don't know that grades communicate much more than whether or not you are an A student or not. And all of the privileges and access that comes from being an A student, whether or not you actually can do anything with the knowledge that you have. The other piece with the 100-point grade scale, which is not universal, like we mentioned in France, is a 20-point grade scale that's not based on percentages, right? In Colombia, it's 50. That kind of does more directly align with the 100-point grade scale. But the AP exam is in the 100-point grade scale, right? GPAs are not a 100-point grade scale in certain contexts, whatever. But a 100-point grade scale orients toward failure. And a lot of what we do in grading students in language convinces them that they're literal failures at it, that they can't do the thing. When that's just not actually true. If all you know how to say is me, belly, pain, 10, then you can do an important thing in the language. You need to know that and carry that, right? If you're a doctor and you have someone who speaks that language, it's okay if you don't know how to conjugate the verb to feel pain. It's okay if you just remember bad. You, belly, bad. How much bad? 0, no bad. 10, many bad. You, how much bad in belly? Yeah? But if you are always told that that is absolutely unacceptable, you're a failure, then you missed out on making that patient feel that much more at home. Feeling that much more seen. You know what I mean? So how can we have our grades reflect more that, while also giving space for the student who's able to say, your stomach is experiencing a certain level of discomfort, yes? Right, like that's different. So how do we give feedback to that student and the other one that fosters both of their growth? And I think it's possible. So feedback over numbers and letters, I'm trying to move faster, so I'm sorry. Asking the question before, if I give a task, not a test, in the traditional sit down, and this is what you had to have a paper that's stapled in the upper left-hand corner and all that. If I give a task and I ask, what did you learn, or versus what did you get? This is especially from the hacking assessment thing. If that becomes the language, like they're gonna friggin' hate it at first because they just want the number. But just like everything else, they're gonna complain about it, but then it just becomes part of the culture in the classroom. Mr. Tinsley's not gonna give you a number until you're able to talk to me about what you learned.
Yeah.
So be mad. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. Tell your mom to email me, whatever. I'll fight your dad. I don't give a Yeah.
Be mad.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're mad about anything, dude. They're 16. They're supposed to be mad at you about everything. But you're not going to get a number from me until you tell me what you learned. And they're going to fake it. They're going to bullshit it because they're going to do that no matter what. But that when that becomes the culture of this classroom space, like, yo, sorry, bro, you're not going to get, you know. Then, okay, now they start having language for being able to describe how they grew and what they learned and all that. Where did you shine? What's something that you feel like where you shined? What's an area where like you're killing it? And what could you polish? So I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but what I do is I have my students create portfolios, and they have to fill out these reflections of their portfolios, and then I meet with them. And I ask them these questions. So in what activities and what everyday things that we do in our class, where do you feel like you shine the most? And here's what I found to be, I've taught every grade, but especially high school. When I ask that question, no matter what they say, you have to agree with them. There's so much value when they're just like, I feel like I do a really good job of, expressing what I did this weekend. There's so much power in being like, yo, I agree 100% with you, man. You do this, and when I call on you, and blah, 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 blah. Because again, even if they don't do it entirely, now they're convinced that they do. And now it's like, yo, it's weekend chat time, man, my boy. Boom. Now I'm the guy who kills it for weekend chat. You know what I'm saying? So it just orients your feedback toward the positive. And it gets them thinking about those things to be like, yeah, there is a thing that we've seen in the rubric is like a communicative thing, right? Like this is an area of language use that matters in this space, and I'm really good at that thing. Or I've shown a lot of growth in that thing. And my teacher values that. My teacher values that every day I show up and do this thing. And I also have, I have like studentship stuff, so we have the same conversation during our portfolio conferences. So it's things that don't necessarily show up in the grade, but it's like, shows respect to peers. You know what I'm saying? Comes prepared to class. I have an opportunity for them to do the same sort of reflection that doesn't show up in the grade out of 100 that I eventually have to do, but we still get to talk about those things, and I still get to reinforce or redirect and all that, but it's not in the grade itself. But it is explicitly talked about. You know what I mean? And it may not be affecting, and I think maybe you were going here earlier, it may not even be affecting your performance, but like the kid, I know that's your best friend, and you want to sit next to your best friend, man, but he can't follow along because you're running your mouth the whole time. Right? So it just sees it as a community thing more too, than just like, this means that you will fail. It's not just about you, man. You're distracted, and now I can't focus. So I'm able to address those like citizenship and studentship things, but it's not about language proficiency. And it's not going to be reflected in the grade that I believe should only reflect whatever. So what did you learn? What could you polish? So then I say, I'm sorry, you've been waiting patiently.
I was just gonna ask for the portfolio, do you kind of like give a grade for each thing as it goes in, or just only at the end?
So I have been able to do it at the end. I'm jumping ahead here too. When we do the portfolio, they talk about this a lot in that book, Hacking Assessment. I'm putting certain grades in the grade book to meet whatever the district wants me to do. But when they show me their portfolio, I say, okay, then if this was the goal, did you meet it? Are you approaching it? Did you exceed it? What grade do you think you deserve? If meeting the criteria we may have set, that to meet the expectations means that you get a 94. And to approach the expectation means you get an 87. Or whatever that number is that I may have established. But you get to tell me, based on the evidence, that you have painstakingly gone through and you were able to edit your videos down and all that kind of stuff. You get to tell me like, yeah, I'm consistently meeting this. And I might disagree. I might still be like, here's this one thing that we keep on talking about. Yeah. But if you're meeting it and you tell me meeting it means I get a 94, so I get a 94, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely, bro. Good work. And a 98 looks like this for you next time. We agree? Awesome. I'll see you next time, dude. You know, and so now it's not like, oh, I don't know what I got and all that. And again, I'm bouncing around, but I think it's sort of happening organically. I asked the question before how many tests you give, because whatever that number is, if it is set, right? If you are a teacher who teaches from a textbook or whatever the thing is, you give this many tests in a quarter, then I would suggest that you ask that they have that many samples of their work in a portfolio in the same thing. So I may give 4 tests in a quarter. I'm actually going to give them 8 communicative tasks that they can choose from. So then I'm also eliminating the whole thing, like you were absent that day and now I gotta stay back and I gotta figure out the makeup and all this kind of shit that like no one wants to do, it has time to do, whatever. They still, of course, you're gonna have a kid that like, you missed several days, you don't have anything in your portfolio. But it's, if I want, in another setting where I'm teaching tests from a textbook, I want 4 samples of what you're capable of doing, then I'm gonna want the same thing. I'm just gonna give you 8 opportunities to get samples from that you can choose from. And putting the student in the driver's seat of their learning like that, in my experience, has really changed like what they are interpreting as what their grades actually mean.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just logistically, you've got now a test in this quarter, and then you've got 4 communicative samples.
Yeah.
What do you do about meshing grades there? I mean, like, how does
Yeah,
that look?
so I actually don't have a test.
Oh, okay,
I'm just saying if one worked.
If one works, you have a test.
Yeah.
Yeah, not you, one, okay.
Yeah. So I would, before I answer, I'd say what I would do is, I'm mostly going to encourage y'all to figure out what that could look like for you in your department. But what I would do is, if I thought that the test, and the test measured, it was an integrated performance assessment that had like an interpretive piece, an interpersonal piece, and a presentational piece, maybe that is 100 points, and then each of your portfolio things might be 20 points apiece, if that's how I wanted to do it. But I also kind of don't believe in having each portfolio piece be measured in and of themselves. So I kind of think that the body of work is more of a reflection of proficiency. So I want to look at it more holistically.
Yeah, so the holistic look at the communicative pieces meshing with kind of a summative grade, like then you just have to figure out where you're going to go with that. Like,
And so again,
so it's for the teacher to interpret that.
Yeah.
Would it be like an average, like if they got like?
I think it would be up to the
Like-
teacher what you think would be, how you value it.
Yeah.
That's
And so-
what-
yeah, and I'll share with y'all, I have like a very simple Google slide template for the portfolios. And it's just like, plug in the video here, it has the criteria, the success criteria for each one, and then it's like, I was able to do this, whatever. And then they're the ones saying, I met, or exceeded, or am approaching, or I showed limited evidence of this thing. But they get to put it all together, and when they present to you, they sit down with you, it's a 7-minute conversation, and they'll show you some quick stuff. And I've learned, even though I have smaller classes, but like, that takes some time. But I can set some time for that, and it's very important to have the rest of the class doing something while you're doing that.
But what if you have like a few grades in, like you said, to appease the district, right, or whatever, and say they're like, I don't know, whatever kind of grades, communicative tasks where they did well and they got a 100 or 90 or something, but then the other things that they're working on, they're just approaching, which is fine, but then they end up with like a 75 all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Then how do you talk to the parents about that?
So
Or does that not happen?
because end of the day, I don't know how y'all's like LMS works. End of the day, I have to input the number, right? It doesn't just calculate it and then that's what ends up on the report card. I have to go in and say Q2, Ben Tinsley 82. Yeah? Is that?
No, we do it piece by piece, and then Power School is constantly averaging it.
And Power School is the end?
Yeah, that's
thing?
the end piece.
Okay. So the reason why I say that is because this is in the book, Grading Smarter, Not Harder. In any other situation, the professional gathers information, takes a bunch of tests, and says, based on what I know of medicine, and this blood work and that blood work and all that, this is what you have. And like someone else may give a second opinion, but they get to gather the information and say, boom, here's your thing. And so what I would say is, if the numbers are showing that this kid has a 75, even though I know that they're like, this kid has this many samples or whatever, like in reality, this kid is actually performing at this level, then I'm gonna give them the grade that I think they reflects what their proficiency level is, I'm gonna override the calculation if for whatever reason the calculation didn't make sense to me.
Jamie, what we have to do is we have to finagle the columns or finagle the actual grades that have gone in to make that calculation at this point.
There is, I believe there's a way to go at, like, to the thing on PowerSchool and then override whatever grade is and type it in at the end.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking you just put in one grade as like a 75.
Like, what if they actually benefit from that?
Yeah.
That's my question. Is
The
like,
admins look at our power schools and say, how come there aren't any?
no, right.
enough grades?"
But then how do you also talk to the teacher, talk to the parent, I'm sorry, like in, at the end of October?
And you say, well,
Right.
you didn't get any, you personally as a parent didn't get any feedback this whole time, and now he has a 75.
Oh,
That's my
so,
question.
yeah,
And
I'm
I'm not
sorry.
judging it at all, I'm actually just wondering.
No. So I learned that the hard way. I just have to have a small check-in before that. So I'm gonna have whatever I think that also is evidence for why grades suck. Because in October, how could I actually give you an accurate thing? The whole point is that we haven't had enough time to do anything. But because, whatever, I'm supposed to meet a certain deadline, now I have to finagle things, right? But given the fact that I have to have a certain amount of grades in by October because we're gonna have these mid-quarter things, right? Then that's when I plan my first check. So for that one, we will have had 2 or 3 communicative tasks. You should have 1 in here, and then we're gonna sit down and talk about it. And then, so before we get to that, whatever grade you're gonna get on that mid-quarter progress report, we've talked about. And you know what I mean?
With the student.
Yeah, with the student.
You don't say that you do that with the parents as well, but it's
No.
just like you've discussed it with the students, so it won't be so much of a surprise if it comes down to it at the grade.
Yeah. I'm not
That wouldn't
answering your
work
question.
here. I don't think that would work here. Only because if you all of a sudden have a grade, and the parents look at it all the time.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that they have the constant access every
Yeah.
day. I really, really like this idea, so I'm trying to figure out like how
Yeah.
I can make it work.
Yeah.
But if you just like pop in a grade at the end, they wouldn't be happy about that.
So
You know what I
I
mean?
think I'm misunderstanding what the end means here.
Oh, sorry, at the end of the quarter. So like our quarter just ended on Halloween.
Okay.
And we have 2 weeks to get grades in. So our grades are done for quarter 1.
Yeah.
So like if I were to wait until like October 25th to put in their portfolio grades, but the parents hadn't received any feedback, but the kid did,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden they got a 75,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So you're saying there isn't an official you get a mid-quarter thing, the mid-quarter progress report.
Yes, there are.
There is.
So what
So you would put it
I'm
in there?
doing a thing for that time period.
Okay,
You know what I mean?
okay.
Yeah, but I got in trouble at my last school because I don't believe in that. I kind of believe that that's the point of the marking periods. And so every time we give them an inch and say, all right, I'll give you more progress reports, then they're like, well, you didn't tell me before then. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you another progress report before the final grade. They're like, but I need more. And the more stuff, and it's all driven by no one cares about whether or not the kid actually speaks Spanish.
Right, yeah.
They don't care about that. They're just asking about the thing. So I want to land the grade real quick. Land the plane real quick. So a couple of things that you brought up very brilliantly before. Part of the challenge is getting us and everyone to reimagine what a 4-point grading scale might look like. 4-point meaning there's limited evidence of proficiency or whatever, or of meeting the target. There's approaching, there's meeting, there's exceeding. It feels like it can be hard, especially in middle and high school levels, to get folks to conceptualize that. But what I encourage us to do is to lean on examples that we actually do know. And most of us know what that looks like in our elementary schools is one. We also know what a GPA on a 4-point scale is. Most students can tell you that I have, a 3-point whatever. That's a 4-point scale. So just being able to reconceptualize it using real-world examples that we already have. I talked about the AP exam. I've never once heard somebody say they got a 4 in the AP exam and be like, damn, I only got 80%. There is no conversion to a 100-point thing. There is no percentage. We understand that 3 means that I did fairly well, and I get like access to whatever the thing is, 4 means that you did pretty good, and then 5 means you did excellent. We're not trying to find the minutia between what's a 91 and a 93. So being able to lean on those examples, and there's a million more that we have. And then I'll sort of close with the value of having the portfolios, but also and sharing the criteria with other teachers and with the students, but also creating a culture. I think I talked to y'all about this the first time I was here. Creating a culture of co-constructed language. And this is already a couple years old, so kids will think that this is cringe. But I had a class, instead of using the language of like limited, approaching, meets, and exceeds, they came up with goated, valid, mid, and L. And they friggin' loved it. They were so honest about their self-reflections when they were able to use language that made sense to them to measure other things, right? And so when I had those conversations about what they were doing and their performance and all that, they were really honest. Like, nah, that was mid. I could have answered in a complete sentence. I only gave you one word. You know what I'm saying? So having that as getting the community buy-in, knowing that the students are a key part of the community, and how we measure those things is a big difference.
Ben, did you ever see that rubric on, I just saw it on Pinterest, it was, some teacher posted it, it was like, you know, the exceeding whatever, and then the last one was like a bitmoji of like a girl in the rain with like a cloud, thunder cloud over her head, and she's like, and it's like, you didn't understand what was going on at all. I'm like, oh my god, that's so mean.
Yeah, I have not seen that, but that's awesome.
It's really funny.
So,
Not good, but it's funny.
what my goal was to do, and Annabelle and I have been talking a decent amount about this. I've loved coming back, and what I think, if we should come back again, I think that one of the things that would be beneficial is for us to have an opportunity to come and see y'all in practice on a day with school's in session, yeah? And this is not, again, it's not about me and expertise and then evaluating you. It's like, if you like statistic of the day and you want to play with it between now and March, and I can come back in March and actually sit in, and then we can invite everybody else to be like, yo, he's been working on it in his classroom, so on this period, we're going to do that, whatever. I think that would be a very helpful thing. One of the things that I encourage you to do as a department is, like I said, have shared language and shared understanding about what grades are, but also practice assessing things together. And what I was going to have us do, these are on the ACTFL website, but they're English. So as people in English doing the OPI, y'all know the OPI? And so if we as a group were to give feedback to this, can we agree upon what feedback we would give, and therefore what grade we would give? But that's going to be a huge step, just like the other piece where it got easier the more we did it. If we can look at certain things and then all agree, like, yeah, she met the task, and she's kind of struggling. It was tough to understand if this is a thing she'd already done or if she plans to do this thing. So that's the feedback I would give. If as a department we can take a rubric and just say, let's look at these videos together. And again, I was hoping to be able to do that today, but I do also appreciate that we were able to organically go where we did. I think that would be very helpful in agreeing upon, this is a student who consistently approaches this target. And it'll make a lot of sense when that student goes from my class to the next one. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I'll share with y'all some more of this stuff. I have a couple of like rubrics and stuff, and then the portfolio templates. I don't know if it's a thing that you can use necessarily, but it really has been a game changer for me to put the students in the driver's seat, to make sure that they have a deep understanding of what success looks like, and for there to be clear communication of what grades actually mean. When they can say, we agreed that approaching the target means that I get an 88. Here's 4 samples that show that I approached the target, so I get an 88, right? And I say, absolutely, bro. You know, as a matter of fact, I think you're kind of exceeding the target sometimes, so what do you say about a 90?
Right.
Yeah.
Quickly, can you remind us of the numbers you use just to...
Yeah, so this is...
I know.
I don't know if this is a quick question.
Yeah, it's not. But So I realize again, I think what's most important isn't what Ben says, but more about like agreeing, and then we agree that there's only these 4 numbers that you can get in a language class. So that you don't get that kid who's like, I got a 91, but he got a 93,
Yeah.
why? You're like, well, because math,
Yeah.
like whatever. But what, and then another piece is that I firmly disagree with the idea that I don't give out hundreds. Because I just, whatever. So I think exceeding the expectation is 100. Because if we're willing to give 0, like, I don't know. So exceeding expectations is 100. Meeting expectations for me was a 92.5. Approaching was an 85. And limited evidence is a 77.5. And then if it were like a task that I wanted to assign fewer points to, if it were out of 10, then I'd do 10, 9.25, 8.5, 7.75. And that's just what worked out for me, so that no one gets a 79. No one gets an 86 point whatever. If you're consistently approaching these criteria that we've seen a million times together, and that's really good. No one fails my class. If you show up and do anything, you're not gonna fail. And you're definitely not gonna fail, I'm sorry, we're still fighting. But you're definitely not gonna fail if you've never done any homework in my class. That's not gonna be the thing. And I know you only have 10%, but I'm never gonna do that and let that be the thing. My feedback will hopefully be, in terms of the grade, I'm gonna give you feedback about your studentship, I'm gonna give you feedback about your citizenship, I'm gonna give you feedback about like just being a good person and all that. We're gonna have that be a dialectic type thing, but your grade is gonna be, you consistently meet the target, right, and you're doing great. That's awesome. Here's a 92.5. Let's keep it pushing. Or you tell me that, 92.5, we shake on it and we're cool. Transparency and growth, yeah?
What am I missing if you say, okay, this piece in the portfolio is a 77.5, but this piece exceeds expectations? What do you do then?
What are you consistently showing?
What is a variation?
Yeah, I'd say you're
Meet
consistent.
somewhere,
That means that you're not consistently meeting it,
okay,
and so that's the valuable feedback
okay,
for me to
okay.
say.
Uh-huh.
But then when we negotiate the grade,
Yeah,
I'm gonna be like, you're sometimes showing this thing.
yeah,
So I can't say that you're meeting it, I can't say that you're showing limited evidence
right,
of it.
so,
So the grade that you'll walk away with is the 85, because that's what you're showing me
Okay.
consistently. And you know how you can get a 92.5 next time, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no like confusion about what growth looks like. So we may still fight about what grade we're gonna land on. But the conversation about why and how and what growth looks like is what I think is a more substantive like takeaway. Yeah. Yo, I appreciate y'all so much, man. I hope that there's something that you can take away, and feel free to email me and curse me out about, you know what I'm saying? But I really mean this, and I'm gonna name it. I really appreciate your pushback and the fact that like that I don't take it as a personal slight at all. I think it reflects like how deeply you care and think about these things, and that how important it is to care and think deeply about those things. And so whatever we walk away disagreeing with, I'm learning and growing from that too. And I encourage y'all, I hope that it's not a matter of believing in everything that Ben says, and more about the shared understanding that you can create as a culture in the school right here, when there's deep, passionate opinions and stuff like that. That shit is good, you know what I mean? So I wish y'all the best of luck moving forward, and if there's anything I can do to support you all, please don't, y'all have my email. I'll make sure you do, but
I'll make
please
sure
don't
that if you
hesitate.
don't have it, I'll send it
Yeah.
out to you when I send our follow-up tomorrow.
Awesome, yo. Thank you all so, damn it, I forgot to ask y'all to take pictures and videos. But thank you all so much, man, I appreciate y'all.